Taller than anything of its time, built with a precision that defies explanation, the Great Pyramid of Giza wasn't just a tomb, it was a message carved in stone. A structure so exact, so massive, and so mysterious that even today we can't fully explain how it was made. Its corners align with the stars. Its stones, some weighing tons, were lifted and placed with near-perfect accuracy. Modern science has probed its walls, scanned its chambers, and run countless simulations, yet the full truth remains just out of reach. Who built it? How? And what secrets might still be buried beneath the desert floor? Before we start today's ancient journey, let us know where in the world you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. Drop it in the comments below, and settle in for a fascinating exploration of the mysteries within the pyramids. The vast and ancient land of Egypt is home to some of the most awe-inspiring structures ever conceived and built by human hands. The pyramids. These colossal monuments rise from the golden sands, standing as silent, enduring testaments to a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago. Their sheer size immediately evokes a sense of wonder, making visitors ponder the immense effort and ingenuity required to bring them into existence. More than 118 known pyramids dot the Egyptian landscape, but it is the cluster at the Giza Plateau, standing majestically on the western bank of the Nile River, that captures the imagination most profoundly. Here, the three largest and most famous pyramids, those of Khufu, Khafra and Menkaure, dominate the horizon, appearing like man-made mountains against the clear desert sky. For millennia, the Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu, stood as the tallest man-made structure on Earth, a record it held for over 3,800 years. Its original height reached approximately 146.6 meters, or 481 feet, a towering achievement for any era. The visual impact of these structures is immediate and overwhelming. One can almost feel the weight of history and the collective human effort that went into their construction. They are not merely large buildings. They are monumental sculptures of stone, crafted with a precision that continues to baffle engineers and archaeologists, even in the 21st century. The primary purpose of these structures was to serve as tombs for the pharaohs and, in some cases, their consorts and high-ranking officials. The ancient Egyptians believed in a complex afterlife, and the pyramid was intended as a secure and grand resting place, protecting the pharaoh's body and belongings for eternity. It was meant to facilitate the pharaoh's journey to the realm of the gods, acting as a stairway to the heavens. This spiritual significance underpinned the colossal scale and meticulous care dedicated to their creation. The enduring nature of the pyramids, standing for well over 4,500 years, speaks to the incredible durability of their construction. They have withstood countless sandstorms, earthquakes, and the relentless passage of time, with only superficial changes due to erosion and the removal of their outer casing stones. The mystery surrounding the pyramids begins with the fundamental question of how ancient peoples, without the aid of modern machinery, advanced mathematics, or global surveying tools, managed to conceive, design, and execute such ambitious projects. The stones, primarily local limestone for the core and finer white limestone for the outer casing, were quarried, shaped, and then transported. Some of the larger granite blocks used in the interior chambers were brought from quarries nearly 800 kilometers or 500 miles to the south. The sheer logistics of moving millions of multi-ton blocks across varying terrains, without the use of wheeled vehicles for heavy loads during the Old Kingdom period, presents an enormous challenge to conventional understanding. Beyond the movement of stones, the precision of the pyramids raises even deeper questions. The sides of the Great Pyramid are aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, true north, south, east, and west, with an astonishing degree of accuracy. The margin of error in this alignment is incredibly small, less than 1/10 of 1 degree, an exactitude that would be difficult to achieve even with today's sophisticated instruments. The base of the Great Pyramid is also remarkably level, with variations of only a few centimeters across its entire expanse of over 53,000 square meters. Such flatness over such a large area is a feat of engineering that demands highly advanced surveying techniques. When visitors approach these desert giants, They are struck not only by their scale, but by a pervasive sense of enigma. How did the ancient Egyptians achieve this level of precision in alignment? How were they able to quarry, transport and lift stones weighing many tons, some reaching up to 80 tons, to such great heights? Where are the detailed architectural plans or written records that would explain the step-by-step process of their construction? The absence of such clear documentation, especially given the meticulous record-keeping and other aspects of ancient Egyptian life, only deepens the mystery. For thousands of years, travellers, scholars and conquerors have gazed upon the pyramids and pondered their secrets. From the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt around 450 before Common Era, to Napoleon Bonaparte, who stood before them in the late 18th century, these structures have consistently inspired awe and speculation. They challenge our assumptions about the capabilities of ancient civilizations and invite us to consider possibilities that extend beyond our current historical narratives. The enduring presence of the pyramids, standing as silent sentinels of a bygone era, continues to ignite curiosity and compel humanity to search for answers to how such impossible feats were accomplished without the technologies we now consider indispensable. The questions they pose remain as solid and imposing as the stone from which they are built, hinting at a past perhaps more complex and capable than we currently understand. To understand the context within which the pyramids were built, it is essential to examine the daily life, social structures, technology, and beliefs of the ancient Egyptian civilization. This society, which thrived for over 3,000 years, was highly organized and deeply rooted in its environment, particularly the annual cycles of the Nile River. The civilization that built the pyramids emerged during the Old Kingdom period, roughly between 2686 and 2181 before Common Era, a time of strong centralized rule and monumental construction. At the apex of ancient Egyptian society was the pharaoh, regarded not just as a king but as a living god, the intermediary between humans and the deities. The pharaoh held absolute power over all land, resources and people. Beneath the pharaoh was a complex hierarchy that included priests, who managed the numerous temples and religious rituals, nobles who governed districts and oversaw local administration, and scribes who were crucial for maintaining records, managing logistics, and facilitating communication across the vast kingdom. Artisans, craftsmen, farmers and labourers formed the broad base of society, each playing a vital role in the functioning of the state. The economy of ancient Egypt was predominantly agrarian, revolving around the fertile lands irrigated by the predictable annual flooding of the Nile. The inundation brought nutrient-rich silt, making the soil exceptionally fertile for cultivating crops such as wheat, barley and flax. This agricultural surplus supported the large population and allowed for specialization of labor, including the development of skilled craftsmen and the mobilization of a large workforces for projects like pyramid construction. A sophisticated system of taxation and redistribution, managed by scribes and administrators, ensured that resources were gathered and allocated efficiently. While there was no coined money during the Old Kingdom, trade occurred through a barter system, exchanging goods and services directly. Religion permeated every aspect of ancient Egyptian life. Their polytheistic belief system included a pantheon of gods and goddesses associated with natural phenomena, human activities, and the afterlife. The concept of Ma'at, representing cosmic order, truth, and justice, guided societal norms and personal conduct. The afterlife was a central preoccupation, with elaborate rituals, funerary texts, and the practice of mummification aimed at preserving the body for eternal life. The construction of pyramids as royal tombs was a direct manifestation of these religious beliefs, intended to ensure the pharaoh's successful transition to the divine realm and their continued role in maintaining cosmic order for Egypt. The Egyptians developed a complex writing system known as hieroglyphs, which combined pictorial, syllabic, and alphabetic elements. Scribes were highly educated individuals trained in this intricate system, using papyrus rolls to record everything from administrative decrees and religious texts to medical treatises and literary works. While extensive records of daily life, inventories, and religious ceremonies exist, the peculiar absence of detailed architectural plans or step-by-step construction manuals for the pyramids remains a puzzling aspect of their historical record. The organizational capacity of the ancient Egyptian state was remarkable. A highly centralized government with a sophisticated bureaucracy was capable of mobilizing and managing vast resources and thousands of laborers. This administrative prowess was essential for coordinating projects on the scale of pyramid building, which required precise scheduling, material procurement, and the provisioning of workers. Laborers were often conscripted farmers during the flood season, when agricultural work was impossible, alongside skilled craftsmen who worked year-round. These workers were not slaves in the modern sense, but were compensated with food, lodging, and other provisions, and their work was considered a civic duty. In terms of technology, the ancient Egyptians possessed practical engineering knowledge, though their tools were relatively simple by modern standards. For quarrying and shaping stone, they primarily used copper tools, such as chisels, saws, and drills, as well as harder stone tools like dolerite pounders and granite hammers. Copper, being a relatively soft metal, meant that tools dulled quickly and required constant resharpening. For softer limestone, these tools were effective, but for working with harder granite, the process was incredibly labor-intensive and slow, often relying on abrasion with sand and water. They understood basic principles of levers, ramps, and simple machines, which were crucial for moving heavy loads. Transportation of materials relied heavily on the Nile River. Large barges were used to float stone blocks from distant quarries like Aswan for granite or Tura for fine limestone, bringing them close to the construction sites. On land, evidence suggests the use of wooden sledges pulled by large teams of men, possibly aided by lubricating the path with water or milk to reduce friction. While wheeled vehicles were known in the region later, there is no evidence of their use for heavy construction in the Old Kingdom. Ancient Egyptians also had a good grasp of practical mathematics and astronomy. They used basic arithmetic, fractions, and simple geometry for land surveying, calculating volumes, and designing structures. Their astronomical observations were precise enough to develop a sophisticated calendar system of 365 days, used for agricultural planning and religious festivals. This knowledge of the heavens also enabled them to align their temples and pyramids with celestial bodies, such as the North Star, a feat that demonstrates a remarkable understanding of directional precision. Beyond the grand constructions, daily life for most Egyptians revolved around the rhythms of farming. Their homes were typically made of mud brick, practical for the hot climate. Their diet consisted mainly of bread, beer, vegetables, and fish from the Nile. Family units were central, and women held a relatively high status compared to many other ancient societies, able to own property and participate in legal proceedings. Despite the simplicity of their tools, the ancient Egyptians achieved extraordinary feats, indicating that their ingenuity, organizational skills, and deep religious motivations compensated for what we might perceive as technological limitations. It is this context of a highly advanced and organized society, yet one without modern machinery, that frames the enduring mystery of how they built the pyramids with such precision and scale. The Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu, stands as an unparalleled achievement of ancient engineering and construction. Its dimensions are staggering, even when viewed through the lens of modern capabilities, making it the most famous and largest of all Egyptian pyramids. Originally, it rose to a height of approximately 146.6 meters, or 481 feet. Although its gleaming white limestone casing stones have largely been removed over the millennia, reducing its current height to about 138.8 meters, or 455 feet, its core structure remains largely intact, a testament to its robust construction. Each side of its square base measures approximately 230.3 meters, or 756 feet, covering an astonishing area of roughly 53,000 square meters, which is equivalent to about 9 American football fields. This massive footprint and towering height result in a total volume of approximately 2.5 million cubic meters, or 90 million cubic feet. The sheer scale of this structure becomes even more impressive when one considers the number of individual blocks used in its construction. Experts estimate that the Great Pyramid is composed of around 2.3 million stone blocks. The vast majority of these blocks are local limestone, weighing on average 2.5 tons, or 5,000 pounds each. Imagine a block of stone weighing as much as 2 family cars. While the average weight is substantial, some of the granite blocks used for the interior chambers, particularly in the king's chamber, are exceptionally heavy. While the average weight is substantial, some of the granite blocks used for the interior chambers, particularly in the king's chamber, are exceptionally heavy, with individual blocks weighing up to 80 tons, or 160,000 pounds. These enormous granite monoliths, along with the finer white limestone for the pyramid's original outer casing, were not sourced locally from the Giza plateau. The granite came from quarries near Aswan, located approximately 800 kilometers or 500 miles upriver to the south. The white limestone was quarried from Tura across the Nile River. The quarrying process itself was an immense undertaking. For limestone, copper chisels and saws were likely used along with wooden mallets. For the much harder granite, copper tools would have been ineffective. Instead, ancient builders would have employed dolerite pounders, a type of extremely hard stone to chip away at the granite. This process would have been incredibly slow and labour-intensive, often aided by the use of abrasive sand and water to cut and shape the stones. The precision with which these hard stones were cut, resulting in remarkably flat surfaces and tight joints, remains a subject of considerable debate. Once quarried, the colossal blocks had to be transported to the construction site. For the long distances from Aswan and Tura, the Nile River served as the primary highway. Massive barges, capable of carrying many tons of stone, would have ferried the blocks north, arriving near the Giza plateau during the annual flood season, which would have allowed them to bring the barges closer to the construction site. From the riverbank, the blocks were then moved over land to the pyramid. The method of land transport is widely believed to involve wooden sledges pulled by large teams of men and oxen. Recent archaeological findings suggest that the Egyptians constructed specific roadways or causeways, possibly lubricated with water or even milk to reduce friction, to ease the movement of these heavy sledges. The most perplexing challenge was the lifting and positioning of these millions of blocks, especially to such great heights. The ancient Egyptians did not possess wheeled vehicles for heavy loads during this period, nor did they have knowledge of the pulley, a fundamental component of modern cranes and lifting equipment. The prevailing theories involve various forms of ramps. Some scholars propose long, straight ramps that gradually ascended the pyramid's face as it grew. Others suggest a spiralling ramp winding around the pyramid's exterior, or even an internal ramp system within the pyramid itself. Each theory faces significant engineering challenges when tested against the reality of moving millions of multi-ton blocks at an incredibly rapid pace. The sheer volume of material and the estimated construction time of around 20 years, based on ancient Greek accounts though this is debated, imply that a block must have been quarried, transported and placed every few minutes, an almost unbelievable rate. The interior of the Great Pyramid is a complex network of passages and chambers. It includes the descending passage leading to a subterranean chamber, the ascending passage, the Grand Gallery, and finally, the King's Chamber and Queen's Chamber, along with various relief chambers above the King's Chamber. These internal structures, particularly the alignment of the passages and the precision of the chambers, required extraordinary foresight and planning. The King's Chamber, built entirely of precisely fitted granite blocks, contains the famous sarcophagus. The joints between many of the massive blocks throughout the pyramid are incredibly tight, often less than 1 millimeter, or 1/25 of an inch, suggesting a master craftsmanship that relied on dry stone masonry in many areas, without the use of mortar. Where mortar was used, it was often in very thin layers, serving more as a lubricant for positioning than a binding agent. The meticulous craftsmanship extended beyond mere placement. The faces of the pyramid were originally covered with highly polished white Tura limestone casing stones, cut with incredible accuracy to create a smooth, gleaming surface that would have reflected the sun's light. These stones were fitted with such precision that a knife blade could not be inserted between them. The removal of most of these casing stones over centuries has left the rougher core blocks exposed, giving the pyramid its stepped appearance today. The astonishing level of precision in every aspect of the Great Pyramid's construction, from its orientation to true north, its nearly perfectly level base, to the tightly fitted stones and complex internal layout, continues to challenge conventional explanations and underscores the incredible, perhaps even impossible capabilities of its ancient builders. The most iconic of Egypt's pyramids, the The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as an enduring marvel, not only for its immense scale and intricate construction, but also for an astonishing feat of ancient engineering, its near-perfect alignment to true north. This precision is a cornerstone of the mystery surrounding these ancient structures, challenging conventional understandings of the technological capabilities of the Old Kingdom Egyptians. True north refers to the direction of the Earth's geographic North Pole, a fixed point on the planet's surface that does not shift. It is distinct from magnetic north, which is the direction a compass needle points, and which fluctuates over time due to changes in the Earth's magnetic field. The builders of the Great Pyramid achieved an alignment to true north with an incredible degree of accuracy, with its four sides deviating from the cardinal directions by approximately 3/60ths of 1 degree, or 0.05 degrees to the west of true north. This mini error is so small that it is barely discernible without precise modern instruments, making the achievement truly remarkable for a civilization operating more than 4,500 years ago. The importance of this precise orientation for the ancient Egyptians was deeply rooted in their religious and cosmological beliefs. The cardinal directions were not merely practical navigational points, but held profound symbolic meaning, connected to the sun's path, the stars, and the journey of the pharaoh in the afterlife. The north, specifically, was associated with the circumpolar stars, those celestial bodies that never set below the horizon from Egypt's latitude. These stars, which appeared to circle endlessly around a fixed point in the northern sky, were seen as eternal and unchanging, an ideal destination for the pharaoh's soul. Aligning the pyramid to this celestial north provided a direct symbolic and perhaps even literal pathway for the deceased king to join the imperishable stars. Ancient Egyptian astronomers were highly skilled observers of the night sky, and their knowledge formed the basis for several proposed methods for achieving such accurate alignment. One widely accepted theory suggests that the builders used the apparent rotation of circumpolar stars to find true north. During the Old Kingdom, the star Thuban, or Alpha Draconis, was much closer to the true celestial North Pole than Polaris, our current North Star, is today. To find true north, ancient astronomers could have observed a pair of circumpolar stars, such as those in the Big Dipper, or Ursa Major, and the Little Dipper, or Ursa Minor, as they circled the sky. By continuously tracking one of these stars, they could identify the points at which it reached its highest position above the pole, known as upper culmination, and its lowest position below the pole, known as lower culmination. A line drawn exactly halfway between these two points would indicate true north. This method, known as the double transit or circumpolar star method, requires patience and precision. Another method often considered is the observation of a single star as it transited the meridian. The meridian is an imaginary line that passes from true north through the observer's zenith, the point directly overhead, to true south. By observing a star as it crosses this line, an astronomer could establish the north-south axis. However, this method requires accurate timing and a way to project the zenith line onto the ground. A more direct method, though less precise for the Great Pyramid's accuracy, involves setting up a gnomon, or a vertical stick, and marking the shortest shadow it casts during the day. The direction of the shortest shadow at local noon points to true north-south. However, this method is susceptible to seasonal variations and is less precise than stellar observations for such minute angular accuracy. The challenges involved in executing these astronomical observations with the required precision are significant, especially given the lack of advanced instrumentation in ancient times. The Egyptians had no telescopes or other optical aids to magnify celestial bodies or to make pinpoint sightings. They would have relied on simple sighting tools, such as the merket, a plumbline instrument used in conjunction with a palm rib with a sighting slit, or a bay, to align with stars. Such tools, while effective for basic astronomical observation and temple alignment, would have demanded extraordinary skill and consistent conditions to achieve an error margin of only 3/60ths of a degree. Achieving this precision would have required an extremely stable and level observation platform, free from vibrations and atmospheric distortion. The process would have likely involved multiple observations taken over many nights, possibly across different seasons, to average out errors and account for slight variations. Even slight refraction of starlight by the Earth's atmosphere could introduce inaccuracies. Furthermore, the ability to transfer the observed celestial line from the point of observation to the vast expanse of the pyramid's base, accurately marking the layout on the ground over hundreds of meters adds another layer of complexity. In contrast, modern surveyors achieve such precision with relative ease and speed. They utilize sophisticated technologies like global positioning systems or GPS, which receive signals from satellites orbiting the Earth, providing pinpoint location data. Total stations, which combine electronic theodolites for angle measurement with electronic distance meters, allow for highly accurate surveying over large areas. Gyrotheodolites use the Earth's rotation to find true north with extreme precision. The capabilities of these 21st century tools vastly simplify tasks that would have been monumental, if not seemingly impossible, for ancient builders relying solely on naked eye observation and basic instruments. The nearly perfect alignment of the Great Pyramid to true north is not just an arbitrary detail. It speaks to a profound level of astronomical knowledge, meticulous planning, and an unparalleled dedication to precision. It suggests that the ancient Egyptians were not merely practical builders, but also sophisticated astronomers and surveyors, capable of applying theoretical knowledge to grand-scale construction with astonishing exactitude. While the proposed methods of stellar observation offer plausible explanations, the degree of accuracy achieved continues to prompt questions about the sheer ingenuity and the ultimate limits of their unassisted technology. This enduring enigma serves as a powerful reminder of the deep well of knowledge that existed in ancient civilizations, and continues to inspire awe and speculation about the capabilities that humanity has possessed throughout its history. The ancient Egyptians possessed a deep and practical knowledge of the night sky, not merely out of curiosity but for essential aspects of their daily life, religious practices, and the profound undertaking of monumental construction, including the pyramids. Their understanding of stars was fundamentally different from modern astronomy, being intrinsically linked to their cosmology, the annual cycles of the Nile, and the perceived journey of the deceased pharaoh to the afterlife. The star maps of ancient Egypt were not mere charts for navigation across oceans, but rather celestial calendars and divine guides. One of the most crucial applications of their astronomical observations was the creation and maintenance of their calendar system. This was primarily based on the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, which they called Sopdet. The heliacal rising occurs when a star becomes visible just before sunrise after a period of being hidden by the sun's glare. For the ancient Egyptians, the reappearance of Sirius coincided almost perfectly with the annual inundation, or flooding, of the Nile River, an event vital for their agricultural cycle and the very sustenance of their civilization. This alignment allowed them to establish a calendar of 365 days, divided into 12 months of 30 days each, with an additional 5 epagomenal days at the end of the year. This calendar, remarkably accurate for its time, demonstrates their keen observational skills and the systematic recording of celestial phenomena. Beyond calendar keeping, stars were instrumental for timekeeping during the night. Lacking artificial light sources for widespread use, ancient Egyptians needed ways to tell time after sunset. They developed a system using decans, 36 star groups that rose sequentially at different hours of the night. By observing which decan was rising, they could mark 12-hour periods of the night, crucial for religious ceremonies and general scheduling. These decans are often depicted on the ceilings of tombs and temples, serving as astronomical clocks. Furthermore, diagonal star clocks, sometimes found on coffin lids, showed the position of decans at specific times, allowing for more precise nocturnal timekeeping. The Egyptians recognized several constellations, although their groupings often differed from those of other cultures. Prominent among these were Orion, which they identified as Sa, representing Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and the leg of an ox, corresponding to Ursa Major or the Big Dipper. These constellations, along with others, were not simply patterns of light, but were imbued with profound religious significance, playing roles in myths and funerary texts. The pharaoh was believed to ascend to the northern sky to join the imperishable stars, the circumpolar stars that never set, after death, emphasizing the sacred connection between royalty and the celestial realm. Evidence of this astronomical knowledge is abundant in Egyptian art and architecture. Detailed astronomical ceilings, such as those found in the tomb of Senenmut, Hatshepsut's chief steward, and in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, depict constellations, decans, and even the visible planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These detailed celestial maps confirm a sophisticated understanding of the movements of various heavenly bodies. Moreover, the famous star shafts within the Great Pyramid, specifically those leading from the King's Chamber and Queen's Chamber, have been a subject of intense study. While their exact purpose is debated, whether for ventilation, symbolic passages for the pharaoh's soul, or astronomical alignment, their precise angles point to specific stars. For example, one shaft from the King's Chamber points to Thuban, the pole star during the Old Kingdom, and another from the Queen's Chamber points to Sirius. Another shaft from the King's Chamber pointed towards Orion's belt. These precise alignments of the pyramid shafts have given rise to theories such as the Orion correlation theory, which suggests that the three main Giza pyramids are laid out on the ground to mirror the three stars of Orion's belt. While this theory remains speculative and faces some astronomical challenges due to the effects of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis over thousands of years, which changes the apparent position of stars over long periods, it nevertheless highlights the deep connection between Egyptian architecture and the heavens. It implies that ancient builders possessed not just a basic understanding of stars, but a highly advanced knowledge of stellar mapping and the ability to transpose cosmic patterns onto terrestrial landscapes with remarkable accuracy. However, despite their impressive astronomical observations, a key question arises when considering the extreme precision of pyramid alignment. Were their tools and methods sufficient to achieve such exactitude? The ancient Egyptians relied primarily on naked eye observation. They had instruments like the merket, a simple sighting device with a plumb line, which was used in conjunction with a bay, a palm rib with a sighting slit, to determine a north-south line by aligning with the passage of circumpolar stars across the meridian. While effective for general alignment, these basic tools lacked any optical magnification. Without telescopes, microscopes, or other precise optical instruments, the ability to pinpoint exact angular positions to fractions of a degree, especially over large distances, becomes incredibly challenging. Naked eye observations are susceptible to various inaccuracies. Atmospheric distortion can cause stars to appear slightly displaced, particularly near the horizon. Even minimal light pollution from ancient fires could have affected visibility. The human eye has inherent limitations in resolving minute angular differences. Furthermore, the process of transferring a precise celestial line from a sighting point to the vast foundation of a pyramid, hundreds of meters in length, would introduce potential for error. The long-term effects of precession also mean that any specific star used for alignment would slowly shift its apparent position over centuries, requiring consistent recalibration of knowledge. While the Egyptians were masters of practical application of their knowledge, the level of precision seen in the pyramid alignments, far exceeding what simple sighting tools would typically allow, continues to prompt questions about whether their star maps were supported by a deeper, perhaps unrecognized level of technology or understanding. Their mastery of the cosmos was undeniable, but whether that mastery, unassisted by modern optics, could produce such perfect terrestrial reflections remains a profound and unresolved query. The creation of a perfectly level foundation for a structure as colossal and intricate as the Great Pyramid of Giza was not merely a desirable aesthetic choice, but an absolute engineering necessity. For a building composed of millions of heavy stone blocks, rising to a height of nearly 150 meters and covering an area of 53,000 square meters, a precisely flat base is paramount for structural integrity, stability, and the accurate realization of its intended angles and alignments. Even a slight deviation in the foundation would multiply exponentially as the pyramid ascended, leading to significant structural stresses, an uneven apex, and a failure to achieve its planned astronomical and cardinal alignments. The ancient Egyptian builders achieved this foundational flatness with astonishing precision, with the base of the Great Pyramid being level to within a mere 2 to 3 centimeters across its entire 230-meter length. This level of accuracy is a testament to their profound skill and continues to challenge modern engineers. The natural landscape of the Giza Plateau was not inherently flat. It comprised a limestone bedrock that sloped gently downwards towards the north and east. Before any construction could begin, this uneven terrain had to undergo extensive preparation. This involved a massive operation of quarrying and levelling the existing bedrock to create a uniformly flat and stable platform. In some areas, higher sections of rock would have been cut away, while in others, lower depressions would have been filled with rubble or carefully fitted stones to raise the ground to the desired level. This foundational work itself was a monumental task, requiring a vast workforce and a sophisticated understanding of land management. The most widely accepted theory for how the ancient Egyptians achieved such remarkable flatness over such a large area involves the use of water. This method, often referred to as the water trench or water channel technique, is elegant in its simplicity but complex in its execution on a grand scale. The process would likely have involved digging a series of shallow perimeter trenches or channels around the proposed footprint of the pyramid. These channels would then be filled with water. The fundamental principle is that the surface of undisturbed water, due to gravity, naturally forms a perfect horizontal plane. By marking the water level onto the surrounding bedrock and internal rock formations, the builders would have established a precise reference line. Once the water level was marked, the task became one of meticulously cutting away any rock that rose above this line and filling in any depressions that fell below it, until the entire 53,000 square meters of the pyramid's base matched the established horizontal plane. This process would have been incredibly labour-intensive. Stone tools, copper chisels, and sheer human effort would have been employed to painstakingly remove or add rock to achieve the desired flatness. The constant need to check and recheck the level using the water reference line would have demanded immense patience and a high degree of skill. While the water trench method is plausible, its application on such a vast scale presents significant challenges. Maintaining a consistent water level over an area as large as the Great Pyramid's base, especially in an arid desert environment, would have been difficult. Evaporation, seepage into porous bedrock, and wind disturbances could all have affected the water's surface, potentially introducing inaccuracies. Ensuring that the channels themselves were uniformly deep and properly sealed to hold water evenly would also have been a considerable engineering feat. Furthermore, the sheer volume of material to be removed or added with such precision, using only basic hand tools, implies an almost unimaginable amount of time and coordinated effort. Other, simpler levelling methods might have been used for localised checks or smaller areas, though they are less likely to account for the overall macro-level flatness. For instance, an A-frame level with a plumb bob, essentially a triangular wooden frame with a weighted string hanging from its apex, could be used to check if a surface was level between 2 points. When the plumb bob aligned with a central mark on the crossbar, the 2 feet of the A-frame would be on the same horizontal plane. While useful for short distances, repeating this method over hundreds of meters would accumulate errors, making it unsuitable for achieving the pyramid's overall precision. Similarly, the use of long, straight wooden beams with plumb bobs or sighting rods of equal height could establish local levelness. But again, scaling these up to the entire base with such accuracy is problematic. The ability to achieve a base level to within a few centimeters across hundreds of meters without the aid of modern laser levels, highly accurate optical surveying instruments, or GPS-guided earth-moving equipment remains a profound mystery. Modern construction projects seeking similar foundational precision rely on sophisticated technologies that automatically compensate for ground undulations and quickly establish precise benchmarks. The contrast between ancient methods and contemporary capabilities underscores the extraordinary skill, meticulous planning, and possibly unrecognized knowledge possessed by the Old Kingdom Egyptians. The fundamental importance of this perfectly level ground cannot be overstated. It was not merely about aesthetic perfection. It was integral to every subsequent stage of construction. A stable and flat base ensured that the immense weight of the pyramid was evenly distributed, preventing settling or cracking that could compromise the structure's integrity over millennia. More critically, it was the prerequisite for the precise angular relationships that define the pyramid's geometry and its astounding astronomical alignments. Without a perfectly level base, the angles of the pyramid's faces would have been inconsistent, its apex would not have been centred, and its sides could not have aligned so accurately with true north, east, south, and west. The flatness of the foundation is a silent testament to an advanced level of surveying and construction planning, a foundational achievement that underpins all other precise aspects of these ancient wonders. The The construction of the ancient Egyptian pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid of Giza, represents an engineering and logistical challenge of monumental proportions, primarily due to the sheer volume and immense weight of the stone blocks involved. It is estimated that the Great Pyramid alone is composed of approximately 2.3 million individual blocks, with an average weight of about 2.5 tons, or 5,000 pounds each. To put this into perspective, 2.5 tons is roughly the weight of a typical modern car. However, this average disguises an even greater challenge. Some of the granite blocks used in the interior chambers, such as the King's Chamber, weigh up to 80 tons, or 160,000 pounds. These colossal stones, equivalent to the weight of an entire modern semi-truck, had to be quarried, transported over vast distances, and then lifted to significant heights, all without the aid of modern machinery. The process began with quarrying. The vast majority of the limestone blocks for the pyramid's core were sourced from local quarries on the Giza Plateau itself, which significantly reduced land transportation distances. For these softer limestone blocks, the ancient Egyptians employed basic but effective tools. Copper chisels and mallets were used to cut and shape the stone. Copper saws, sometimes used with abrasive sand and water, helped to make long, straight cuts. Another common method involved driving wooden wedges into natural cracks or pre-cut grooves in the rock. These wedges would then be soaked with water, causing the wood to swell and exert immense pressure, thus splitting the stone along natural fault lines or desired breaks. While copper was relatively soft, the constant resharpening and replacement of tools, combined with persistent labour, allowed for the extraction of millions of precisely cut blocks. The remarkable accuracy with which these blocks were cut and dressed, often resulting in joints less than 1 millimetre wide, speaks to an astonishing level of skill and attention to detail at the quarrying stage. The challenge intensified considerably for the harder stones, specifically the granite used for the interior chambers, sarcophagi, and some structural elements, and the fine white limestone used for the pyramid's outer casing. The granite was sourced from quarries located approximately 800 kilometres or 500 miles south of Giza near modern-day Aswan. Copper tools were largely ineffective against granite's extreme hardness. Instead, the Egyptians employed much harder stone tools, predominantly dolerite pounders. These were heavy, round balls of dense, tough rock, often weighing 5 to 10 kilograms or 11 to 22 pounds. Workers would repeatedly pound the granite surface with these dolerite balls, slowly crushing and abrading the stone to detach blocks. For cutting granite, copper saws, again used with abrasive sand and water, were employed, requiring immense effort and time to slowly grind through the hard material. The precision achieved on these granite blocks, particularly the multi-ton beams in the King's Chamber, remains one of the most perplexing aspects of ancient Egyptian stonework. The white casing limestone came from the Tura quarries, located across the Nile River, requiring river transport. Once quarried, the colossal blocks had to be transported to the Giza construction site. For the blocks from Aswan and Tura, the Nile River served as the essential highway. Large wooden barges or rafts were constructed to carry these immense loads. While no complete barges of this exact type have been found, tomb paintings depict the transportation of large obelisks and statues on riverboats, demonstrating their capability for heavy river transport. The annual inundation of the Nile, which swelled the river and its tributaries, was crucial. This elevated water level allowed the barges to navigate closer to the Giza Plateau, reducing the distance for land transport. Unloading these heavy blocks from barges onto riverbanks would have required sophisticated ramp systems or careful manipulation of water levels. Upon arrival at the riverbank near Giza, the blocks needed to be moved across land to the pyramid construction site. The primary method for land transport involved the use of wooden sledges. These were sturdy platforms made of heavy timber, upon which blocks were loaded. Teams of human labourers, sometimes numbering in the hundreds for the largest blocks, would then pull these sledges across prepared ground. Evidence from ancient tomb paintings, such as that in the tomb of Jehutihotep from the Middle Kingdom, depicts a massive statue being pulled on a sledge by many men, with one individual pouring liquid onto the sand in front of the sledge. This imagery supports theories that the Egyptians likely wet the sand, or used lubricants like water, or even milk to reduce friction, and ease the pulling of heavy loads. Recent experiments have confirmed that wetting sand significantly reduces the force required to pull a sledge. Furthermore, the construction of the dedicated roadways or causeways was critical for facilitating land transport. Archaeological evidence at Giza and other pyramid sites indicates the existence of such causeways, often paved and levelled, extending from the quarries or river docks to the pyramid itself. These prepared surfaces would have minimised irregularities, making it easier to pull the heavy sledges. As the pyramid grew taller, these same causeways and ramps, which will be discussed in the next section, also served as the routes for moving blocks upwards. The final and arguably most challenging step was lifting these multi-ton blocks to their precise positions, sometimes hundreds of feet above the ground. The ancient Egyptians operated without several key technologies that are indispensable to modern heavy construction. They had no knowledge of the wheel for heavy transport. Though pottery wheels existed, wheeled vehicles for heavy loads did not. No iron tools, no pulleys for mechanical advantage, and no complex crane systems. Their lifting capabilities were largely restricted to the use of levers, rollers, and ramps, coupled with immense human muscle power and ingenious application of simple physics. Levers could be used to raise the edge of a block a small amount, allowing rollers or shims to be inserted underneath, gradually inching the block into position. However, this method would be painstakingly slow and incredibly difficult for the highest levels and heaviest blocks. The sheer physical effort involved in all stages, quarrying, transporting, and lifting, was immense. It required a highly organised and disciplined workforce, estimated to have numbered in the tens of thousands. These workers were not slaves in the traditional sense, but skilled craftsmen, quarrymen, and seasonal labourers, largely farmers, who would have been conscripted during the annual Nile flood when agricultural work was impossible. They were organised into specialised gangs, often identified by names like the Strong Gang or the Enduring Gang, and overseen by foremen and supervisors. Archaeological findings at Giza include workers' villages with bakeries, barracks, and even medical facilities, indicating a highly structured system for supporting this massive labour force. The estimated construction time for the Great Pyramid, around 20 years, implies an astonishing pace. A block would need to be quarried, transported, and set into place approximately every few minutes, continuously, for 2 decades. This relentless requirement for material flow and placement underscores the extraordinary physical demands and the unparalleled organisational capabilities of the pyramid builders. The logistics of dealing with such heavy stones, from their extraction to their final precise placement, remain a powerful testament to ancient ingenuity and a profound source of wonder. The construction of the ancient Egyptian pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid of Giza, presents one of history's most enduring engineering puzzles. Given the immense scale, the colossal weight of the individual stone blocks, and the remarkable precision of their alignment, archaeologists and engineers have proposed various theories to explain how these wonders were built. The most widely accepted explanations revolve around the use of ramps, as they represent a technology known to have been available to the ancient Egyptians and could theoretically facilitate the movement of heavy loads to great heights. One of the most straightforward and intuitively appealing theories is the straight-on ramp theory. This proposes that a single, massive ramp extended directly from the ground level to the rising faces of the pyramid. As the pyramid grew taller, the ramp would be continuously extended in both length and height. Blocks, likely placed on wooden sledges, would then be pulled up this ramp by teams of labourers. The simplicity of this concept lies in its direct approach and reliance on basic physics. A longer, gentler slope reduces the force needed to pull a heavy object. If the ramp's slope was very gradual, perhaps around 7 or 8 degrees, it would have allowed easier ascent. However, the straightforward ramp theory faces significant practical challenges. For the Great Pyramid, a single straight ramp would need to be incredibly long to maintain a manageable slope. To reach a height of 146.6 metres with a gentle incline, the ramp would have stretched for well over a kilometre or 3/4 of a mile, consuming an enormous amount of material, possibly more than the pyramid itself, in its construction. This material, typically mud brick, rubble, and wood, would then have needed to be painstakingly dismantled upon completion of the pyramid. Furthermore, such a massive ramp would have physically blocked access to 3 sides of the pyramid, severely limiting the workspace and the ability to maneuver blocks around the vast construction site. As the pyramid neared its apex, The top of the ramp would also become too narrow to effectively handle the continuous flow of millions of blocks and thousands of workers. To address some of these limitations, another prominent theory is the spiral ramp theory, external. This model suggests that instead of a single straight ramp, a ramp spiraled upwards around the outside of the pyramid, possibly on constructed terraces. Blocks would be pulled up this spiraling path, continuously ascending along the pyramid's outer faces. This theory offers several advantages over the straight-on ramp. It would be significantly shorter, requiring less material, and it would allow work to progress simultaneously on all four sides of the pyramid, potentially speeding up construction. However, the external spiral ramp theory also has its drawbacks. A primary concern is how the builders would have maintained the precise angles of the pyramid's corners and faces if the ramp itself obscured their view. From within the ramp, it would be extremely difficult for surveyors to ensure the exact 51.8-degree slope of the pyramid's faces or its precise cardinal alignment. Furthermore, turning large, multi-ton blocks at the tight corners of a spiraling ramp, especially at higher elevations where space would be more constrained, would have posed a considerable logistical challenge. Archaeological evidence for such a massive continuous external spiral ramp remains elusive, with no clear traces having been found around the Great Pyramid. A more recent and compelling theory is the internal ramp theory, championed by French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin. This theory proposes that most of the Great Pyramid was constructed using an internal ramp that spiraled upwards within the pyramid's core, about 10 to 15 meters, or 30 to 50 feet, from its outer surface. According to Houdin's model, a straight external ramp would have been used only for the lower third of the pyramid, up to a height of approximately 43 meters, or 140 feet. Beyond this height, blocks would have been hauled up the internal ramp system. Houdin suggests that at each corner of the internal ramp, there would have been an open notch or turnaround area, allowing the massive blocks to be rotated and moved onto the next section of the ramp. These notches would later have been filled in as the pyramid neared completion. The internal ramp theory offers several significant advantages. It addresses the issue of the vast amount of material needed for external ramps, as the internal ramp becomes part of the pyramid's permanent structure. It also resolves the problem of maintaining precise corner angles, as the corners would have been clear for observation from the outside at certain points. Furthermore, radar scans conducted in the 1980s and 1990s around the Great Pyramid revealed a spiral-shaped void, or anomaly, within the pyramid structure, which some interpret as potential evidence supporting an internal ramp. This theory also provides a plausible mechanism for placing the capstone and finishing the very top of the pyramid, where external ramp systems would be impractical due to limited space. However, challenges remain, such as the difficulty of maneuvering 80-ton granite blocks within relatively narrow internal passages and the lack of direct archaeological proof of such a ramp, beyond indirect scans. Given the complexities and challenges of each individual ramp theory, many researchers now believe that the ancient Egyptians likely employed hybrid theories, combining different techniques for different phases of construction. For instance, a straight ramp might have been used for the lower levels, where vast quantities of material were needed and access was easier. This could then have transitioned to an external spiral ramp for the middle sections, and perhaps internal ramps or even levering techniques for the final highest levels and the placement of the capstone. Beyond ramps, other methods have been proposed for lifting blocks, particularly for the upper sections where ramp construction becomes increasingly difficult. Lever theories suggest that wooden levers could have been used to rock or walk stones up, layer by layer. This would involve placing a lever under a block, lifting one side slightly, inserting shims or packing material, then repeating on the other side, gradually raising the block into position. While plausible for individual blocks or smaller upper sections, using levers for millions of blocks, especially the heavier ones, would be an incredibly slow, labour-intensive and dangerous process, and there is no direct archaeological evidence of such a widespread technique. Less accepted and more speculative theories include using water locks, buoyancy in large shafts, or even sound vibrations, but these lack scientific or archaeological support. Despite extensive research, archaeological discoveries, and sophisticated engineering analysis over centuries, a singular, universally accepted theory explaining the precise construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza has yet to emerge. While various ramp theories and other proposed methods offer plausible frameworks for how the ancient Egyptians could have moved and placed the millions of heavy stone blocks, each conventional explanation encounters significant limitations and leaves critical questions unanswered. These failures primarily revolve around the observed precision, the immense scale, and the implied speed of construction, creating a persistent gap between what we understand of ancient capabilities and the undeniable reality of the monument itself. One of the most significant points where conventional theories struggle is in fully accounting for the extraordinary precision achieved in the pyramid's construction. The cardinal alignment of the Great Pyramid, deviating by only about 3/60ths of 1 degree from true north, is breathtaking. How any ramp system, particularly external ones, could allow for continuous and accurate verification of this precise alignment as the pyramid grew remains an unresolved issue. An external ramp would have obscured the pyramid's base and corners, making it extremely difficult for surveyors to maintain a consistent line of sight to celestial bodies or fixed ground points necessary for such pinpoint accuracy. Even if reference points were established on the ramp itself, transferring this exactitude from a potentially moving or settling structure to the immutable pyramid faces is highly problematic. Similarly, the near-perfect levelling of the pyramid's base to within a few centimetres across its entire 53,000 square metre footprint is incredibly difficult to explain with known ancient methods. While the water trench method offers a theoretical solution, executing it on such a vast scale with such accuracy, maintaining the water level consistently in the desert heat, and then meticulously carving away or filling in rock over hundreds of metres with simple hand tools, stretches the limits of practical feasibility for the stated precision. Cumulative errors, even minute ones, would likely have resulted in much greater deviations over such a large area. The angular accuracy of the pyramid's faces, consistently around 51.8 degrees, also presents a challenge. How this precise angle was maintained uniformly across all 4 faces, block by block, as the structure ascended, without advanced surveying instruments capable of projecting and verifying such angles over great heights, is not fully explained. The exceptionally tight joints between millions of blocks, often less than 1 millimetre wide, further compound this issue. Achieving such precision in masonry on a monumental scale, especially when blocks are theoretically being hauled up ramps and potentially jostled, implies a level of fine-tuning and cutting accuracy that seems incompatible with the known tools and proposed construction methods. Beyond precision, the sheer scale and logistics of the proposed conventional methods present formidable obstacles. The straight-on ramp theory, for example, necessitates a ramp of colossal proportions. To maintain a manageable slope for pulling multi-ton blocks, such a ramp would have stretched for well over a kilometre, consuming an astronomical amount of material, more than the pyramid itself. The logistics of quarrying, transporting, and then constructing such a gargantuan ramp, only to dismantle it upon completion, introduce a separate project of almost equivalent magnitude and complexity. Furthermore, such a massive ramp would have physically blocked 3 sides of the pyramid, creating immense logistical bottlenecks for the movement of millions of blocks and tens of thousands of workers, potentially causing severe congestion and inefficiencies. Even spiral ramp theories, while addressing some of these issues, face their own logistical dilemmas. An external spiral ramp would still present challenges at the corners, where the tight turns would make manoeuvring massive blocks exceptionally difficult, especially at higher elevations where space would be extremely confined. The internal ramp theory, while ingenious, still requires moving 80-ton granite blocks up narrow internal passages, which would have been an incredibly complex and potentially dangerous undertaking. The precise structural integrity of an internal ramp, built concurrently with the pyramid's core, also raises engineering questions. Perhaps one of the most compelling arguments against the sufficiency of conventional theories is the implied speed of construction. Based on the traditional estimate of a 20-year construction period for the Great Pyramid, an average of a block would need to be quarried, transported, and precisely set into place approximately every few minutes, continuously, for 2 decades. This astounding pace seems almost irreconcilable with the slow, laborious methods proposed by all conventional theories, which rely solely on human muscle power, basic tools, and simple machines. Each individual step in the process, from the painstaking quarrying of hard granite with dolerite pounders to the slow hauling of multi-ton blocks up a ramp and their final precise positioning is inherently time-consuming. The constant resharpening and replacement of copper tools, which dulled quickly, would also have contributed to significant delays. The sheer physical output required day in and day out for 20 years pushes the limits of what is humanly sustainable. A significant gap in understanding also stems from the lack of definitive archaeological evidence for the Grand Ramp systems. Despite extensive archaeological exploration at Giza and other pyramid sites, no definitive physical remains of the massive kilometre-long straight ramps or continuous external spiral ramps have been discovered. While smaller, short-term ramps for lower levels or quarries are plausible and have some minor evidence, the large-scale structures required by the leading theories are conspicuously absent. Similarly, while Jean-Pierre Houdin's internal ramp theory is compelling due to indirect radar evidence of voids, the ramp itself has not been physically confirmed, and its technical challenges remain. Furthermore, the puzzling absence of comprehensive architectural blueprints or detailed construction manuals for the pyramids remains a profound enigma. Ancient Egyptians were meticulous record keepers, documenting everything from daily life and administrative decrees to religious rituals and medical practices. Yet, for a project of such unprecedented scale and precision, there is a striking lack of specific step-by-step instructions on how it was actually built. This contrasts sharply with the detailed plans found for other, less complex ancient Egyptian structures. Finally, the sophisticated internal engineering feats of the Great Pyramid, such as the Grand Gallery and the complex system of relieving chambers above the King's Chamber, designed to distribute the immense weight of the overlying masonry, demonstrate an advanced understanding of structural mechanics. These elements imply a level of planning and foresight that goes beyond simple cut-and-stack methods commonly associated with ramp theories. While the theories propose methods by which the physical task could have been done, they often fall short in explaining how such extreme precision, incredible speed, and complex internal architecture were achieved concurrently and consistently, using only the technology conventionally attributed to the ancient Egyptians. This persistent discrepancy suggests that a critical piece of the puzzle, or an underestimation of ancient capabilities, is still missing from our historical understanding. One of the most profound and puzzling aspects of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and indeed of most of the large pyramid constructions of ancient Egypt, is the striking absence of detailed architectural plans, blueprints, or comprehensive written instructions detailing their construction methods. For a monumental undertaking of such unprecedented scale, complexity and precision, this lack of documentation stands as a significant anomaly in the vast archaeological record of ancient Egypt, prompting continuous debate and speculation among scholars. The absence of such crucial planning documents is highly unusual, especially when contrasted with the meticulous record-keeping evident in almost every other facet of ancient Egyptian civilization. Ancient Egyptian scribes were prolific and highly organized record keepers. Their society relied heavily on written documentation for administrative, economic, religious, and even medical purposes. We possess a wealth of information written on papyrus scrolls, limestone ostraca, pottery shards, and temple and tomb walls. These records include detailed accounts of grain harvests, census data, tax collection, legal proceedings, inventories of goods, and precise logistical records concerning the provisions and movements of workers. For example, the Wadi al-Jaf papyri, discovered in the 21st century, detail the daily life and activities of a team of workers involved in transporting limestone from the Tura quarries to Giza during the reign of Khufu, providing granular insights into the logistics of material supply. This rich administrative context makes the silence regarding detailed pyramid construction plans all the more deafening. Beyond simple administrative tasks, the Egyptians also left behind extensive records concerning the construction and dedication of other structures. Inscriptions on temple walls often detail the pharaoh who commissioned the building, its purpose, and even general statements about its design or the materials used. Foundation deposits, often found at the corners of temples, might contain miniature models of tools or ceremonial items, symbolizing the building process. However, these are symbolic and celebratory, not functional blueprints. Furthermore, their artistic conventions meticulously depicted various aspects of daily life, including farming, craftsmanship, rituals, and even surgical procedures on tomb walls and papyri. Yet, there is no known depiction of an architect's detailed drawing of a complete pyramid or a step-by-step instructional guide for its construction, which would seem to be an essential tool for such an elaborate project. The expectation for detailed plans arises logically from the immense scale and complexity of the pyramids. A project involving millions of stone blocks, intricate internal passages, multiple chambers, and shafts, all requiring precise angles and alignments, would, in modern terms, be utterly impossible without comprehensive blueprints. Such documents serve several critical functions. They ensure that the design is fully pre-visualized and structurally sound. They provide a master guide for all stages of construction, and they facilitate coordination among tens of thousands of workers, different specialized guilds, quarrymen, masons, sculptors, overseers, and the vast logistical network supplying materials and sustenance. Without a master plan, errors could easily compound over the multi-year timeframe of construction, leading to catastrophic structural failures or significant deviations from the intended design. The precision observed in the Great Pyramid further underscores the need for such meticulous planning. The alignment to true north within 3/60ths of 1 degree, the base level to within a few centimeters across its entire 230-meter length, and the consistent 51.8-degree angle of its faces all demand a pre-existing design and strict adherence to precise measurements. It is difficult to conceive how such exactitude could be achieved through ad hoc methods or purely oral instructions passed down from one generation of builders to the next, especially across the vast workforce and time span involved. The internal structures, including the Grand Gallery and the complex relieving chambers above the King's Chamber, exhibit sophisticated engineering that would require careful planning and coordination of distinct construction phases, integrated seamlessly into the overall ascending structure. Several proposed explanations attempt to account for this puzzling absence, each with its own limitations. One common theory suggests that the plans simply existed but were lost to time. Papyrus, the primary writing material, is fragile and susceptible to decay, fire, and moisture. While many ancient papyri have indeed perished, it seems improbable that absolutely no fragments or references to such crucial documents have survived, unlike the multitude of other, seemingly less important, administrative or literary texts. If they were carved in stone, they would have been found. Another theory posits that the knowledge of pyramid building was considered sacred or highly proprietary, confined to a select few master builders or a priestly class, and therefore never committed to widely accessible written form. Instead, it might have been passed down orally or through master-apprentice relationships, keeping the secrets within a privileged few. While this is plausible for certain specialized knowledge in ancient societies, relying solely on oral tradition for a project of such scale and precision, requiring coordinated effort over decades and involving tens of thousands of individuals, introduces significant risks of miscommunication or loss of critical information. A third explanation suggests that the Egyptians used simpler, non-drawn planning methods, such as scale models or direct measurements on the ground. Some small-scale architectural models of houses or shrines have been found, indicating they understood the concept of modelling. However, no comprehensive scale model of an entire pyramid, with its internal passages, has ever been discovered. Furthermore, planning a structure of the Great Pyramid's size and complexity solely through ground-level measurements would have been incredibly challenging, if not impossible, to ensure overall geometric coherence and precise angular relationships, particularly as the structure ascended. The curvature of the Earth over such vast distances would also complicate ground-based direct measurements for global alignment. Finally, some propose that the design and construction techniques were so deeply ingrained and implicitly understood by a highly specialized group of master architects that formal blueprints were simply unnecessary. This implies an almost intuitive grasp of complex engineering and geometry, where the design was held in the minds of a few brilliant individuals. While ancient Egyptians certainly possessed impressive practical skills, the idea that a project of this magnitude could be executed to such a high degree of precision without explicit, detailed, and transferable plans stretches credulity in the context of project management today. The persistent absence of detailed pyramid plans has profound consequences. It fuels ongoing speculation about the true methods of construction, leading to a myriad of theories ranging from the conventional to the highly unconventional. Without a blueprint, modern attempts to replicate the pyramids or definitively explain their construction are forced to make assumptions, often highlighting the immense difficulties and the apparent discrepancy between known ancient technology and the finished product. The missing plans leave the how of the pyramid as one of history's most compelling unsolved mysteries, challenging our understanding of ancient capabilities and urging us to consider possibilities that may lie beyond our current historical narrative. While the pyramids of Egypt stand as unparalleled achievements of ancient engineering, they are not the sole examples of monumental construction and impressive precision from antiquity. Across the globe, various ancient cultures erected colossal structures that continue to inspire awe and curiosity. However, when comparing the Egyptian pyramids, particularly those at Giza, to other ancient megastructures, it becomes evident that the Egyptian examples often stand out for their unique combination of astronomical and geodetic alignment, geometric perfection, and astonishing block-fitting accuracy, especially given their sheer scale. One of the most famous megalithic sites outside of Egypt is Stonehenge in Wiltshire, England. This prehistoric monument, constructed between roughly 3000 and 2000 before Common Era, consists of a ring of large standing stones, some weighing up to 30 tons, known as sarsen stones, and smaller blue stones, weighing up to 4 tons, transported from hundreds of kilometres away in Wales. Stonehenge is renowned for its precise alignment with the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset. On these specific days, the sun's rays align with particular stones, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles by its builders. While impressive for its age and the scale of stone movement, Stonehenge's construction techniques differ significantly from the Egyptian pyramids. The stones are relatively rough-hewn, not finely dressed, and their joints, while utilising mortise and tenon and tongue and groove connections, do not exhibit the hairline precision seen in the Great Pyramid. The overall geometric precision and the flatness of the ground, while adequate for the structure, do not match the exacting standards of Giza. In Mesoamerica, civilizations such as the Maya and the Teotihuacanos constructed impressive stepped pyramids and vast ceremonial complexes. The Mayan pyramids, such as El Castillo at Chichen Itza in modern-day Mexico, are notable for their intricate designs and clear astronomical alignments. El Castillo is famous for its solar alignments, particularly during the spring and autumn equinoxes, when the setting sun casts shadows that create the illusion of a serpent, Kukulkan, slithering down the steps of the northern stairway. Many Mayan structures also align with Venus cycles and other celestial events, reflecting their advanced calendar system and cosmological beliefs. However, Mayan pyramids are typically stepped platforms, not true geometric pyramids, with perfectly smooth faces like those in Egypt. While impressive in scale and astronomical observation, their construction often involved rubble cores faced with stone, and their block fitting and angular precision do not generally rival that of the Giza pyramids. At Teotihuacan, a vast ancient city in modern-day Mexico, the pyramids of the sun and moon are colossal structures. The Pyramid of the Sun, for example, is one of the largest ancient structures in the Western Hemisphere, standing approximately 66 metres or 216 feet tall. It aligns with certain astronomical events, including the setting of the Pleiades constellation on specific dates, and its main axis points towards a prominent peak in the landscape. However, while massive, the pyramids of Teotihuacan exhibit less precise cardinal alignment compared to the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Pyramid of the Sun, for instance, is slightly off true north. Their construction involved a rubble fill covered by stone facing, and the masonry, though sturdy, does not display the fine dressing and incredibly tight joints characteristic of Egyptian pyramid construction. Moving to ancient Ireland, Newgrange, a Neolithic passage tomb and monument predates the Great Pyramid by several centuries, dating back to roughly 3200 before Common Era. This large circular mound, built of earth and stone, is famous for its precise alignment with the winter solstice sunrise. On this shortest day of the year, a narrow beam of sunlight penetrates a special opening above the entrance, illuminating the inner chamber. This demonstrates an incredible astronomical foresight and engineering skill for its time. However, Newgrange's construction involves rough, unworked stones forming its passages and chambers, covered by a massive earthen mound. Its precision lies in the solar alignment and structural integrity of its basic components, not in the geometric perfection or finely dressed masonry of the Egyptian pyramids. In South America, the Inca civilization of the Andes Mountains, flourishing much later, primarily in the 15th and 16th centuries, perfected a unique style of dry stone masonry. Their structures, such as those at Machu Picchu and Sacsayhuaman in modern-day Peru, feature massive, irregularly shaped polygonal blocks fitted together with astonishing precision, often without mortar. The fit is so tight that it is impossible to insert even a knife blade between the stones. This technique allowed their buildings to withstand frequent earthquakes. While this dry stone fitting is an exceptional feat of engineering and artistry, the Inca structures are typically not pyramidal in form, nor do they exhibit the same level of cardinal or astronomical alignment as the Egyptian pyramids over vast, geometrically perfect structures. Their precision is in the interlocking of individual, often irregular, stones rather than the overall perfect geometry of a colossal, multifaceted structure. When comparing these impressive global achievements, the Egyptian pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid of Khufu, stand in a category of their own due to a unique combination of factors. Their unrivaled cardinal alignment to true north, with a deviation of only 3/60ths of 1 degree, remains a benchmark of ancient precision, far exceeding that found in most other major ancient structures. This level of directional accuracy is consistently maintained over the entirety of the pyramid's vast base. Furthermore, their geometric perfection is unique. They are true pyramids, with perfectly flat bases, precisely calculated face angles, around 51.8 degrees, and an overall shape that represents an ideal geometric form. The astonishing block fitting and fine masonry work are also distinguishing features. Millions of blocks, some weighing many tons, are fitted with joints often less than 1 millimeter wide, relying on friction and precision rather than mortar. This level of craftsmanship is not consistently matched by other large-scale ancient constructions. Finally, the sheer scale and internal complexity of the Egyptian pyramids, combining millions of carefully placed blocks with intricate internal passages, chambers, and sophisticated stress-relieving systems, demonstrate an unparalleled feat of both raw labor management and advanced structural engineering for their time. While other cultures achieved remarkable feats of monumental construction and astronomical observation, the Egyptian pyramids, particularly those at Giza, combine these elements with a level of geometric, geodetic, and masonry precision that remains largely unmatched, pushing the boundaries of what is conventionally understood about ancient human capabilities. The Earth, as we understand it through modern science, is not a flat plane but an oblate spheroid, a sphere slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. This fundamental characteristic, known as the Earth's curvature, has profound implications for large-scale surveying and construction. While negligible over short distances, the curvature of the Earth becomes a significant factor when dealing with measurements and alignments spanning hundreds of meters or kilometers. The precision achieved in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, particularly its remarkably level base and accurate cardinal alignment over its vast expanse, raises questions about the builder's implicit or explicit understanding of this concept, a concept seemingly beyond the known theoretical knowledge of ancient civilizations. To grasp the relevance of Earth's curvature, consider the difference between a truly flat surface and a truly level surface. A perfectly flat surface is a two-dimensional plane that does not conform to the Earth's curve. Conversely, a perfectly level surface is one that is everywhere perpendicular to the force of gravity, meaning it follows the curvature of the Earth. If you imagine a still body of water, its surface naturally represents a perfectly level plane that curves with the Earth. This distinction is critical for large construction projects. For instance, over a distance of 1 kilometer, or approximately 0.62 miles, the Earth's surface curves by about 8 centimeters, or roughly 3.15 inches. Over 50 kilometers, or about 31 miles, the curvature results in a drop of approximately 196 meters, or 643 feet. This subtle yet constant deviation from a flat plane must be accounted for in any precise, large-scale surveying. For a structure like the Great Pyramid, with a base length of approximately 230 meters or 756 feet on each side, the Earth's curvature, while small, is certainly relevant. If the builders had intended to create a perfectly flat base without accounting for curvature, it would actually appear to slope relative to a true horizontal line on the Earth's surface. However, archaeological measurements have revealed that the base of the Great Pyramid is level to within an astonishing few centimeters, around 2 to 3 centimeters across its entire length. This precision indicates that the pyramid's base was constructed to follow the local horizontal plane, implicitly conforming to the Earth's curvature. This implies that the ancient Egyptians, whether through theoretical knowledge or highly refined practical methods, managed to achieve a construction that respects the planet's spherical nature. Beyond levelling, Earth's curvature also impacts large-scale directional alignment. Lines of longitude, which define true north and true south, are not parallel. They converge towards the poles. When aligning a massive structure like a pyramid to true cardinal directions over its extensive base, one must account for this convergence. Modern geodetic surveying, which explicitly factors in the Earth's shape and gravitational field, relies on advanced mathematics, including spherical trigonometry and complex calculations, along with highly precise instruments like global positioning system receivers and total stations to achieve accurate measurements over vast curved distances. The conventional understanding of ancient Egyptian cosmology and science does not include an explicit theoretical grasp of the Earth as a sphere. Most ancient cultures, including possibly the Egyptians, conceptualize the Earth as a flat disk or rectangle with a domed sky above it. There are no surviving texts or diagrams from the Old Kingdom that detail a mathematical model of a spherical Earth or explain how to perform geodetic calculations. Their astronomical knowledge was highly developed for practical purposes like calendar keeping and celestial alignment, but it does not overtly extend to global geodesy. This creates a significant paradox. The practical achievements of the pyramid builders in levelling and alignment appear to require an understanding or a method that implicitly accounts for Earth's curvature, even though there is no explicit evidence that they possessed the theoretical knowledge of spherical geometry or the Earth's spherical shape. How could they have produced a base that conforms to the Earth's local horizontal plane within centimeters, without explicitly knowing about the sphere or having instruments capable of measuring and transferring such precise curved lines over vast distances? The water levelling method, often cited as the most plausible technique for achieving the pyramid's flat base, naturally produces a level surface that follows the Earth's curve. If a large channel was filled with water around the pyramid's perimeter, the water's surface would indeed be a perfect local horizontal. However, the challenge lies not in the water's natural properties, but in the precision with which the builders translated that natural level onto the bedrock, and then performed the vast earth-moving and stone-setting operations to match that level within mere centimeters, across an area of 53,000 square meters. This would require an unparalleled control over the natural phenomenon and an extremely meticulous process of marking and excavating. The impossible implication arises from this discrepancy between apparent capability and known knowledge. Did the ancient Egyptians possess an intuitive, empirical understanding of how surfaces behave over long distances, refined through generations of practical experience, without necessarily developing the abstract mathematical theories of spherical geometry? Or did they possess a lost theoretical understanding of geodesy that has yet to be uncovered? The precision of the Great Pyramid, particularly in its base levelling and cardinal orientation, hints at an awareness of global geometry that seems to transcend their conventionally recognised scientific and mathematical framework. This persistent enigma underscores the depth of the mystery still held within these ancient structures, suggesting that the pyramid builders might have been capable of feats that defy our current understanding of their scientific and technological development. Modern surveying is a highly precise scientific discipline and an advanced art, focused on accurately determining the terrestrial or three-dimensional position of points and the distances and angles between them. Unlike ancient methods, which relied heavily on manual labour, simple geometric principles and rudimentary tools, contemporary surveying leverages a suite of sophisticated technologies that overcome the challenges of scale, precision, and speed that ancient builders would have faced. These technologies allow for unparalleled accuracy in mapping, construction, and land management across vast and varied terrains, fundamentally altering how large-scale projects are conceived and executed. One of the most revolutionary advancements in modern surveying is the Global Positioning System, commonly known as GPS. GPS is not a single device, but a vast network of orbiting satellites owned and operated by the United States government. This system is part of a broader category called Global Navigation Satellite Systems, or GNSS, which also includes Russia's GLONASS, Europe's Galileo, and China's Beidou. The fundamental principle behind GPS involves satellites continuously transmitting radio signals to Earth. A GPS receiver on the ground measures the time it takes for these signals to arrive from multiple satellites. By calculating the time difference, the receiver can precisely determine its own three-dimensional position, latitude, longitude, and altitude, through a process called trilateration. For professional surveying applications, techniques like real-time kinematic, or RTK, and post-processed kinematic, or PPK, use additional ground-based reference stations or sophisticated data processing to achieve centimetre-level accuracy, far beyond the accuracy of consumer-grade GPS devices. The advantages of GPS for surveying are immense, directly addressing many ancient challenges. It provides absolute global coordinates for any point on Earth, eliminating the need for line-of-sight observations to distant ground features or celestial bodies. It operates 24 hours a day in almost all weather conditions and significantly reduces the time and labour required to establish control points over large areas. The system inherently accounts for the Earth's curvature, providing geodetic positions that are relative to a global datum, something impossible for ancient surveyors who primarily operated on an assumed flat plane. This technology allows engineers to precisely site a building on a specific part of the globe with unprecedented accuracy, ensuring its orientation and position are exactly as planned, regardless of local terrain or astronomical conditions. Another cornerstone of modern surveying is the total station. This electronic optical instrument is a highly integrated device, combining an electronic theodolite for measuring angles, both horizontal and vertical, with an electronic distance meter, or EDM, for measuring distances. The total station works by emitting an infrared laser beam to a reflector placed at the target point and then calculating the distance based on the time it takes for the beam to return. Simultaneously, it precisely measures the horizontal and vertical angles to the target. Modern total stations are highly automated, often robotic, meaning they can track a target prism automatically and even perform complex calculations on site. They can store thousands of data points digitally, reducing human error in recording and transcribing measurements. The precision of total stations is remarkable, typically achieving angle accuracies of sub-millimeter scales and distance accuracies within millimeters. This level of exactitude is critical for setting out building foundations, aligning structural elements, and verifying dimensions on large construction projects. Compared to ancient methods, the total station replaces the tedious and error-prone use of separate measuring tapes, plumb bobs, sighting rods, and manual angle measuring devices like the simple plumb line or the Egyptian merket. It provides instantaneous, highly accurate measurements, drastically speeding up the surveying process and ensuring that even the most complex angles and distances are set out with pinpoint accuracy. For establishing perfectly level surfaces, laser levels are indispensable modern tools. These devices project a highly precise laser beam to create a visible or detectable horizontal, vertical, or even sloping reference line or plane. Rotating laser levels, for example, emit a continuous laser beam that sweeps across a job site, creating a perfectly level plane that can be detected by a receiver mounted on a staff or machinery. Many laser levels are self-leveling, automatically adjusting to ensure a true horizontal or vertical reference. The precision of laser levels is exceptionally high, typically within millimeters over tens or even hundreds of meters. This technology completely bypasses the need for ancient methods like water-filled trenches or tedious A-frame levels with plumb bobs, which were labour-intensive and prone to error over large areas. With a laser level, a single surveyor can quickly and accurately establish a perfectly flat foundation, ensuring that every point across a vast construction site is precisely on the same horizontal plane. This capability directly addresses the challenge of creating the Great Pyramid's incredibly level base, which for the ancients was a monumental task relying on painstaking effort and ingenious yet rudimentary techniques. Beyond these primary instruments, other advanced technologies contribute to modern surveying precision. LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, is a remote sensing method that uses pulsed laser light to measure distances. Airborne LiDAR systems can rapidly collect billions of data points, creating incredibly detailed three-dimensional point clouds of terrain and objects below. This allows for the creation of highly accurate topographic maps, digital elevation models, and precise pre-construction site analysis, even penetrating dense vegetation. Satellite imagery and aerial photogrammetry provide high-resolution images of the Earth's surface from above. These images, when processed with specialized software, can generate precise two-dimensional and three-dimensional maps, allowing engineers and planners to visualize and measure vast areas from a bird's-eye perspective, identifying optimal locations, planning infrastructure, and detecting subtle changes over time. Finally, the integration of survey data with computer-aided design (CAD) software is fundamental to modern precision. Surveyors import data from GPS and total stations directly into CAD programs, allowing architects and engineers to design complex structures with virtual models. This digital environment enables precise calculations of volumes, angles, and dimensions, identifies potential conflicts or errors before any physical construction begins, and allows for rapid design iterations and optimizations. This level of pre-visualization, design accuracy, and error checking was entirely beyond the capabilities of ancient builders. The concept of a satellite view transcends a mere technological innovation. It represents a fundamental shift in perspective, offering capabilities for global mapping, precise positioning, and understanding large-scale geographical relationships that were entirely inaccessible to ancient civilizations. Before the mid-20th century, the highest vantage point for human observation was typically a mountain peak or an early aircraft. The advent of artificial satellites, however, introduced a new dimension of perception: the ability to observe and measure the Earth from orbit, providing an unobstructed, continuous, and comprehensive overview of the entire planet. This bird's-eye perspective is the core idea that underpins how satellite technology could hypothetically resolve some of the seemingly impossible aspects of ancient pyramid construction. From a satellite's orbit, the Earth unfolds as a vast, interconnected entity, devoid of the local obstacles that impede ground-level observations. Mountains, forests, dense urban areas, and even atmospheric conditions like clouds, depending on the sensor type, do not universally obstruct the line of sight for global mapping. This allows for simultaneous observation and measurement of geographical areas ranging from entire continents down to remarkably fine details of a few centimeters, or even less, depending on the satellite's resolution. This global overview is essential for tasks that require a precise understanding of large-scale spatial relationships, something that was immensely challenging, if not impossible, for ancient builders relying solely on ground-based surveying. The capabilities offered by this unique perspective are manifold. Firstly, in global mapping, satellites enable the creation of incredibly detailed and accurate maps of the Earth's surface. High-resolution optical imagery, akin to taking photographs from space, provides visual data that can be processed to generate precise two-dimensional and three-dimensional maps, including highly accurate digital elevation models that depict terrain contours. Beyond visible light, other remote sensing technologies such as synthetic aperture radar or SAR can penetrate clouds and work at night, revealing surface features regardless of weather or light conditions. SAR can also penetrate shallow ground, potentially revealing buried ancient structures, old riverbeds, or forgotten groundworks that are invisible from the surface. This capacity for comprehensive, consistent mapping of vast areas far surpasses any cartographic efforts achievable by ancient methods, which were limited by ground-based measurements and local observations. Secondly, satellite technology facilitates precise positioning on a global scale. While global positioning systems provide the precise coordinates of a specific point, satellite imagery and advanced remote sensing techniques allow for the accurate relative positioning of numerous features across Earth's surface. This involves a process called georeferencing, where geographical data, such as images or maps, are accurately linked to real-world locations on Earth's surface. For urban planners, archaeologists, or engineers today, satellite data allows for seamless site planning from orbit. An architect could use satellite data to perfectly site a future building, taking into account not only its precise global coordinates, but also its relationship to local topography, geological features, and even distant landmarks. This overarching perspective ensures that the structure's orientation and placement are perfectly aligned with a master plan, something difficult to achieve without a macro view. Thirdly, the satellite view is crucial for understanding large-scale geographical relationships. From an orbital vantage point, it becomes possible to identify subtle alignment patterns, geometric relationships, or specific orientations between widely separated ancient sites that would be entirely imperceptible from ground level. This could include theories suggesting alignments of ancient structures to specific geographical features, shared lines of latitude or longitude, or even patterns related to a hypothetical global energy grid. The ability to measure and compare positions over vast curved distances, and to see how disparate sites might form part of a larger coherent design, fundamentally requires a perspective that transcends the limitations of terrestrial observation. The satellite view provides the ultimate tool for this kind of macro-level analysis. Moreover, a satellite view fundamentally provides a tangible grasp of the Earth's spherical geometry in a way that ground-based observations cannot. From orbit, the planet's curvature is evident, and the convergence of lines of longitude towards the poles becomes a visual reality rather than an abstract mathematical concept. This perspective is crucial for understanding how to achieve truly global-scale alignments, or to design structures that perfectly conform to the Earth's curvature, as the Great Pyramid's level base appears to do. It transforms the theoretical understanding of geodesy into a practical, observable reality. The metaphorical concept of as above, so below resonates strongly with the capabilities of a satellite view. It suggests that a grand design, perhaps conceived with an understanding of global geometry or celestial patterns, could be meticulously transferred to the ground. This raises a central argument regarding the pyramids. Their astonishing precision in cardinal alignment, the remarkable flatness of their vast bases, which implicitly account for Earth's curvature, and the alleged large-scale relationships between the Giza complex and other distant sites, all seem to imply a level of planning and execution that would be immensely facilitated by a satellite-like perspective. The core mystery then becomes, how could ancient builders, operating thousands of years ago, without any known advanced optical instruments or a theoretical understanding of global geodesy, have conceived of or executed such precise, large-scale alignments? The capabilities offered by satellite technology today for global mapping, precise positioning, and understanding vast geographical relationships highlight the apparent technological gap between what the ancient Egyptians were believed to possess and what the pyramids physically demonstrate. This leads to the profound question of whether ancient knowledge was far more advanced than currently believed, or if there was some form of external assistance or a lost technology that provided a similar high-altitude overview, enabling them to achieve feats that still baffle modern science and engineering. The satellite view provides a crucial lens through which to examine these impossible aspects of the pyramids, forcing a re-evaluation of historical capabilities. The pyramids of Egypt, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, are not merely massive piles of stone. They're geometrically precise forms, defined by a series of incredibly accurate angles that continue to defy simple explanation given the presumed technological limitations of their builders. The specific angular precision of the pyramids, extending beyond their cardinal alignment to encompass the angles of their faces and the relationships between various components, represents a profound challenge for conventional construction theories, highlighting a capability that seems impossible without advanced tools. The most prominent example of this angular precision is the face angle of the Great Pyramid. Each of its 4 triangular faces rises at a remarkably consistent angle of approximately 51.8 degrees, or more precisely 51 degrees, 51 minutes, and 14 seconds. This specific angle results in a mathematical relationship where the ratio of the perimeter of the pyramid's base to twice its height is nearly equal to pi, or approximately 3.14159. Furthermore, the angle also appears to encode relationships to the golden ratio, phi, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of advanced mathematics by the pyramid builders. The immense challenge lay not just in determining this precise angle, but in maintaining it consistently, course by course, as the pyramid rose to its original height of 146.6 meters, or 481 feet. Any slight error in the angle of a lower course would be magnified significantly with each subsequent layer, leading to a visibly crooked or off-center apex. Yet the Great Pyramid's capstone, now missing, would have met at a single, precise point. Ancient Egyptian builders would have relied on various theoretical or practical methods to set and maintain these angles. One method often proposed involves the use of a simple rake or an A-frame level set to the desired slope. This could be a wooden frame constructed with the precise 51.8-degree angle, used to check the slope of the pyramid's face as it ascended. Another technique involves slope triangles, which are right-angled triangles with specific side ratios that define the desired incline. By laying out such a triangle on the ground or constructing it as a template, builders could theoretically transfer the slope to the rising structure. Additionally, plumb bobs and measuring rods would have been used for vertical and horizontal measurements, but combining these to consistently maintain a precise angle over a continuously rising massive structure presents immense practical difficulties. The use of taut string lines stretched from a central point or from the corners could also provide guidance, but managing these over a structure hundreds of meters wide and high, while thousands of workers moved heavy blocks, would be incredibly challenging. The challenges of achieving this consistent face angle with ancient tools are substantial. The potential for cumulative error is immense. Even a minute deviation on each course would result in a significant distortion at the top. The Egyptians lacked precision protractors or angle measuring devices capable of performing large-scale, real-time angular checks. Maintaining fixed reference points over a long construction period, potentially 20 years, and constantly moving work surfaces, ramps, would have been exceptionally difficult. Visibility could also have been an issue, with dust, workers, and scaffolding or ramp structures potentially obscuring the faces, making continuous angle verification problematic. Furthermore, the slight irregularities in block shapes or varying friction during placement could have easily thrown off the angle without precise calibration and adjustment capabilities. Beyond the external face angles, the relationships between the three main pyramids at Giza, Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure, also exhibit intriguing angular precision. While they are not perfectly in a straight line, with Menkaure being noticeably offset to the southwest, many theories suggest an intentional large-scale design for their placement. For example, some propose that their positions mirror the stars of Orion's belt, implying a terrestrial reflection of a celestial pattern. If such an overarching layout plan for the entire Giza complex existed, its execution would have required a level of angular and positional precision across several hundreds of meters of uneven terrain that would be immensely difficult to achieve from ground level. This would necessitate highly accurate triangulation, or a master plan that precisely accounted for vast distances and local topography. The internal angles and passages within the Great Pyramid further complicate the picture. The descending passage, for instance, runs at an angle of roughly 26.3 degrees from the north face, pointing towards the circumpolar region of the sky. The ascending passage and the Grand Gallery also exhibit precise angles, leading to the internal chambers. Constructing these internal tunnels and chambers with their specific angles, dimensions, and remarkable straightness within the growing mass of the pyramid, while simultaneously building the external structure, required an extremely complex and precise interior surveying capability that was not visible from the outside. Any error in these internal alignments would lead to passages that did not meet at their intended points or chambers that were misaligned. In stark contrast, modern surveyors achieve such angular precision with relative ease and speed. Total stations can measure and set angles digitally with millimetric accuracy. Laser levels can project precise angles over long distances, providing constant visual guides. Computer-aided design, or CAD, software designs complex structures, calculating all angles and dimensions precisely, and allowing for virtual simulations to identify and correct any potential angular conflicts before construction even begins. These tools eliminate much of the human error and the need for constant laborious manual checks that would have plagued ancient builders. The consistent perfection of the Great Pyramid's external face angles, the precise internal passage angles, and the large-scale layout of the entire Giza complex considered together suggest a level of angular control that appears to transcend the practical limitations of ancient tools and conventionally recognized methods. It implies either an unrecognized and highly sophisticated understanding of geometry and its application on a grand scale, or perhaps a different means of establishing and maintaining such critical angular references over vast distances and long periods that remains unknown to us. The impossible angles of the pyramids stand as a profound testament to an enduring mystery of ancient engineering. The Giza Plateau, situated on the western bank of the Nile River in Egypt, is far more than a collection of 3 isolated pyramids. It constitutes a deliberately planned and integrated complex of monumental structures. At its heart stand the 3 Great Pyramids, built for the pharaohs Khufu, Khafra and Menkaure, surrounded by a multitude of smaller pyramids, temples, causeways, and the enigmatic Great Sphinx. The precise arrangement and relative positions of these structures suggest a grand design, conceived on a scale that would have been tremendously difficult to execute from a ground-level perspective alone, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of a large-scale planning that challenges conventional historical narratives. The largest and oldest of the 3 main pyramids is that of Khufu, commonly known as the Great Pyramid, positioned to the north of the complex. To its southwest stands the Pyramid of Khafra, the second largest. Although slightly shorter than Khufu's pyramid, Khafra's structure often appears taller due to its construction on a higher section of the Giza Plateau's bedrock. Further to the southwest, and noticeably smaller than the first 2, is the Pyramid of Menkaure. When observed from a distance, or particularly from an aerial perspective, a specific arrangement becomes apparent. The pyramids of Khufu and Khafre are positioned in a remarkably precise alignment along a diagonal axis that extends from the northeast to the southwest. However, the Pyramid of Menkaure is distinctly offset to the east of this exact diagonal line, rather than being perfectly collinear with its 2 larger counterparts. This specific offset of Menkaure is a key feature that sparks much debate and forms the basis for various theories regarding the overall site plan. The spacing between these massive structures is also deliberate. The distance between the centres of Khufu's and Khafra's pyramids, and then between Khafra's and Menkaure's, along with their relative proportions, suggests calculated measurements. These are not randomly placed monuments, but elements of a cohesive architectural composition. Furthermore, the cardinal orientation of all 3 major pyramids is strikingly accurate, particularly that of Khufu's, which aligns to true north with a deviation of only about 3/60ths of 1 degree. This precise directional alignment, consistent across all 3 structures, is fundamental to any discussion of a larger coordinated site plan. The relationship of the Giza complex to the Nile River is equally significant. The entire plateau is situated on the west bank of the Nile, a deliberate choice reflecting ancient Egyptian beliefs about the land of the living, east, associated with the rising sun, and the land of the dead, west, associated with the setting sun and the afterlife. The Nile was the essential artery of ancient Egypt, critical for transportation, particularly for the movement of millions of tons of stone from distant quarries. The finer white limestone for the pyramid casing came from Tura quarries located across the Nile, and the hard granite for internal chambers was transported from Aswan, some 800 kilometers or 500 miles to the south, via the river. The placement of valley temples and long causeways extending from the edge of the Nile floodplain to the mortuary temples at the base of each pyramid clearly indicates a planned and integrated connection to the river, facilitating the transport of materials and the funerary processions. Some speculative theories even suggest that the layout of the Giza pyramids themselves, or the Giza complex as a whole, might mirror a specific bend or feature of the Nile's course, indicating a geodetic awareness linked to their primary geographical feature. Executing such a precise large-scale plan from ground level would have presented immense challenges for ancient builders. From the ground, the full perspective of the entire Giza complex, encompassing all 3 main pyramids and their associated structures, is impossible to obtain. Hills, natural undulations in the bedrock, man-made sand dunes accumulating during construction, and the rising structures themselves would have constantly obscured direct sightlines, over distances of hundreds of meters. A surveyor standing at the base of Khufu's pyramid could not simultaneously view and accurately position the base of Menkaur's pyramid or the entire span of the complex to ensure an overarching geometric relationship. Precisely surveying and setting out points over distances of several hundreds of meters and maintaining those points accurately throughout decades of construction would have been exceedingly difficult with the rudimentary tools available to ancient Egyptians. Their methods typically involved ropes, measuring sticks, and plumb bobs. While effective for localized measurements, these tools are highly susceptible to cumulative errors when extended over vast areas. Small inaccuracies in sequential measurements or the transfer of reference points would inevitably lead to significant deviations over the scale of the entire Giza complex. The natural topography of the Giza plateau itself, which features varying elevations and natural rock outcrops, further complicates the task. Laying out a precise plan that accounts for such uneven terrain, ensuring specific relative positions and angles between structures, would demand a level of contour mapping and large-scale leveling that pushes the limits of known ancient capabilities. The absence of an aerial or satellite-like perspective is perhaps the most critical limitation. Without a high-altitude overview, it would be highly improbable for builders confined to the ground to conceive of or implement a grand design that encompasses multiple structures, their precise relative positions, and their relationship to distant geographical features like the Nile's course or celestial patterns. The consistency and the cardinal orientation of all three pyramids, their calculated spacing, and the overall integration with the Sphinx and associated temples all point towards a unifying design principle. This design, particularly with the specific offset of Menkaur, suggests a complex geometrical and possibly astronomical relationship between the structures that would have been challenging to visualize and precisely execute from the ground. Therefore, the precise Giza layout, embodying consistent alignments over significant distances and accounting for varied topography, suggests a master plan that would have been tremendously difficult to conceive and implement using only the tools and vantage points conventionally attributed to the ancient Egyptians. It hints at a level of advanced geodetic understanding or an unknown method for large-scale architectural planning that extends beyond simple ground-based surveying. The integrated design of the Giza complex stands as a powerful enigma, suggesting a vision that perhaps only a view from above could have truly facilitated. The Orion correlation theory represents one of the most prominent and debated hypotheses attempting to explain the precise layout of the three main pyramids on the Giza plateau. Popularized in the early 1990s by authors Robert Bauval and Adrian Gilbert, this theory posits a profound connection between the terrestrial monuments and the celestial realm. Its central claim is that the relative positions and sizes of the three Great Pyramids, Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaur, are a deliberate scaled-down terrestrial representation of the three prominent stars that form the belt of the Orion constellation: Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka. The constellation of Orion, the Hunter, is one of the most recognizable and bright constellations in the night sky, visible from almost everywhere on Earth. Its three belt stars are particularly distinctive. Al-Nitak, also known as Zeta Orionis, is the brightest of the three and forms the easternmost star in the belt. Al-Nilam, or Epsilon Orionis, is the middle star and the second brightest. Mintaka, or Delta Orionis, is the westernmost star and is slightly fainter than the other two. Crucially, when observed, Mintaka is not perfectly in line with Al-Nitak and Al-Nilam. It is slightly offset to the north. This specific characteristic of the celestial alignment is central to the Orion correlation theory. According to the theory, this celestial arrangement is mirrored on the Giza plateau. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, the largest and easternmost of the Giza trio, is correlated with Al-Nitak, the brightest and easternmost star of Orion's belt. The Pyramid of Khafra, the middle pyramid in the Giza complex, is correlated with Al-Nilam, the middle star of the belt. The Pyramid of Menkaur, the smallest and westernmost of the Giza pyramids, is correlated with Mintaka, the smallest and westernmost star of the belt. The most striking aspect of this proposed correlation is the deliberate offset of Menkaur's pyramid from the otherwise straight diagonal line formed by Khufu and Khafre. This offset, according to the theory, precisely mirrors the subtle offset of Mintaka from the line formed by Al-Nitak and Al-Nilam in the Orion constellation. This parallel, where a minor astronomical irregularity is reproduced with remarkable fidelity on the ground, is presented as compelling evidence for an intentional design and a direct link between the pyramids and Orion's belt. Furthermore, the theory extends this correlation, suggesting that the orientation of the entire Giza complex relative to the Nile River mirrors the orientation of Orion's belt relative to the Milky Way galaxy, creating a holistic star map on Earth. A key component of the Orion correlation theory is the phenomenon of precession of the equinoxes. The Earth's axis undergoes a slow conical wobble, much like a spinning top, over a period of approximately 26,000 years. This axial wobble causes a gradual shift in the apparent position of stars over thousands of years, meaning that constellations visible from Earth slowly change their positions relative to the celestial poles and the equinoxes. This astronomical fact is crucial for dating the proposed correlation. Bovall and Hancock, the theory's proponents, calculated that the best fit for the alignment of Orion's belt with the Giza pyramids, specifically considering the precise angles and the offset of Mintaka, would have occurred around 10,500 before Common Era. This proposed date, 10,500 before Common Era, is the most controversial aspect of the Orion correlation theory. It predates the conventionally accepted construction period of the Giza pyramids by over 8,000 years. Orthodox Egyptology places the construction of these pyramids firmly within the 4th dynasty, roughly between 2580 and 2560 before Common Era. The 10,500 before Common Era date implies either that the Old Kingdom Egyptians inherited or rediscovered incredibly sophisticated astronomical knowledge from a much older, advanced pre-dynastic civilization in Egypt, or possibly even from a globally dispersed, highly capable ancient culture. This implication aligns with lost civilization hypotheses, suggesting a hidden history of human achievement. If the Orion correlation theory is accurate, its implications are profound. Firstly, it suggests an extraordinarily sophisticated understanding of positional astronomy and celestial mechanics by the ancient Egyptians, or their predecessors. This would include knowledge of the precise locations of stars, their relative magnitudes, and crucially the long-term effects of precession on their apparent positions. Such a level of astronomical knowledge would be thousands of years ahead of formal understanding in other cultures. Secondly, it implies a multi-generational, perhaps even multi-millennial, planning for the Giza complex. The meticulous execution of such a grand design, passing down complex astronomical data and architectural intent across vast stretches of time, would require an unprecedented level of continuity and precision in knowledge transfer. Finally, it reinforces the idea that the pyramids were not merely utilitarian tombs, but highly complex astronomical observatories, or symbolic cosmic engines, designed to perfectly integrate terrestrial structures with precise celestial patterns, serving a higher, perhaps spiritual or cosmic purpose. Despite its compelling nature, the Orion correlation theory faces significant critiques from mainstream archaeologists and astronomers. One major counterargument concerns the discrepancy in dates. Critics argue that relying solely on the best fit of precession to date the alignment is problematic, as other periods might also offer a reasonable fit for specific aspects of the correlation, and there is no archaeological evidence for a complex civilization in Egypt at 10,500 before Common Era, capable of such monumental construction. Furthermore, critics suggest that with enough flexibility and selective interpretation, one can find correlations between any set of 3 points on the ground and 3 stars in the sky, potentially making the correlation accidental rather than intentional. Some also argue that the offset of Mintaka might not be as visually striking to the naked eye from Egypt as the theory claims, or that other more prominent stars in Orion's vicinity are ignored. The astonishing flatness of the Great Pyramid's base, measured to be level within a mere 2 to 3 centimeters across its entire 230-meter length, stands as one of the most remarkable feats of ancient engineering. This level of precision is critical for a structure of such immense scale, ensuring stability, even weight distribution, and the accurate realization of its intended angles and alignments. The most widely accepted conventional explanation for how ancient Egyptian builders achieved this feat relies on the principle that water naturally finds its own level. This method, often referred to as the water trench or water channel technique, is theoretically plausible, yet its practical execution to such an extreme degree of perfection raises significant questions about its sufficiency in accounting for the observed precision. The proposed water leveling method is elegantly simple in its underlying physical principle. Water, under the influence of gravity, will always settle into a perfectly horizontal surface. Ancient Egyptians would have been intimately familiar with this property through their daily lives along the Nile River. The technique would have begun with the preparation of the construction site, involving the initial clearing and rough levelling of the bedrock on the Giza plateau. Following this, a precise perimeter trench, or a series of interconnected channels, would have been excavated around the planned footprint of the pyramid. These channels would then be filled with water, most likely sourced from the Nile via specially dug canals or even hauled by hand. Once the channels were filled and the water had settled to its natural level, the critical step of marking would commence. The exact water level would be meticulously marked onto the surrounding bedrock and any remaining high points of rock within the proposed base area. This marking could have been done by chiseling precise lines into the stone, or by using temporary markers. After the water was drained, the massive task of excavation and filling would begin. All rock that rose above the marked waterline would have to be painstakingly cut away, and any depressions or lower areas would need to be filled with rubble or carefully fitted stones, until the entire 53,000 square meters of the pyramid's base precisely matched the established horizontal plane. This process would have demanded an immense workforce engaged in continuous earth-moving and meticulous stone dressing. While the natural levelling property of water is undeniable, and the method's concept is simple, its practical application to achieve the observed extreme precision on such a vast scale presents formidable challenges and limitations for ancient builders. One major concern is the maintenance of a consistent water level in a hot, arid desert environment. Large bodies of water are highly susceptible to rapid evaporation, which could cause the water level to drop unevenly over the course of the day or over longer periods. Furthermore, wind could create ripples or subtle distortions on the water's surface, making it difficult to achieve precise marking. If the underlying bedrock was porous, as limestone often is, water seepage could lead to inconsistent levels if the channels were not perfectly sealed, which would itself be a significant engineering challenge. Another critical limitation lies in the accuracy of translating the water level onto the stone. Marking the exact waterline onto the bedrock, whether by chiselling or other means, would require extreme care and a steady hand. Even a small error in marking could accumulate over hundreds of meters, leading to noticeable deviations in the final level of the pyramid's base. The subsequent task of excavating or filling vast amounts of rock with such pinpoint accuracy, using only basic tools like copper chisels and stone hammers, and relying entirely on manual labour, would have been an incredibly slow, laborious process. Any slight misjudgment during this lengthy phase of construction could easily result in deviations from the ideal level. The sheer time and labour required to prepare such a vast area to within centimetres of precision using these methods would have been astronomical, significantly adding to the overall construction timeline of the pyramid. A construction site of this magnitude is also a dynamic environment, with thousands of workers, materials, and ongoing activities. Maintaining the sanctity of the water level and preventing disturbances from human activity or environmental factors over years of foundational work would have been a constant battle. While water was undoubtedly a tool used by ancient Egyptians for some levelling, the question remains whether it, alone, could fully account for the extraordinary, almost perfect flatness observed at the pyramid bases, or if it was part of a more sophisticated, perhaps unrecorded system that augmented these simple methods. In contrast, modern levelling techniques offer instantaneous and precise solutions. Laser levels, for example, project a perfectly horizontal plane across vast distances with millimetre accuracy, eliminating the need for large water bodies and overcoming environmental factors like wind or evaporation. Robotic total stations can automatically scan and map terrain with incredible precision, allowing for rapid and accurate earth moving. Modern machinery, guided by GPS technology, can quickly and precisely level vast areas, ensuring a perfectly flat foundation with minimal human error. The discrepancy between the apparent simplicity of the water levelling method and the astonishing, almost flawless flatness achieved by the pyramid builders compels us to consider whether their ingenuity was even greater than we currently understand, or if additional, perhaps unknown techniques were employed to achieve such an impossible level of precision. The paradox lies in the high degree of achieved accuracy versus the perceived limitations of the methods assumed to have been used. The mysteries surrounding the precise placement and alignment of ancient megalithic sites across the globe, including the Egyptian pyramids, have given rise to various speculative theories about a global energy grid or network of ley lines. These ideas, while controversial and not widely accepted by mainstream science, propose that certain ancient structures are deliberately positioned on an unseen network of telluric currents, electromagnetic energy lines, or geodetic alignments, hinting at a larger, coordinated plan that transcends the boundaries of individual cultures and known historical timelines. The concept of ley lines originated in 1925 with Alfred Watkins, a British amateur archaeologist. In his book, The Old Straight Track, Watkins observed that numerous ancient sites in the British landscape, such as standing stones, burial mounds, churches, beacon hills and old trackways, appeared to align in perfectly straight lines when viewed on a map. Initially, Watkins did not attribute any mystical or energetic properties to these alignments. He proposed that these ley lines were simply ancient trackways, prehistoric trade routes or ceremonial paths, marked by prominent landscape features that served as navigational points for ancient peoples travelling across the terrain. His work was based on careful observation and mapping of known archaeological sites in the British Isles. However, from the 1960s onwards, the concept of ley lines evolved significantly, moving beyond Watkins' original pragmatic interpretation. Researchers and proponents of alternative archaeology began to imbue these lines with notions of earth energy, geodetic lines, psychic energy, or even subtle electromagnetic currents flowing along them. This expanded view suggested that ancient builders possessed a mysterious knowledge that allowed them to detect and harness these unseen forces, strategically placing their monuments at points where these energies were concentrated or intersected. The idea of local ley lines further expanded to encompass a global scale, leading to various global grid theories. One notable figure in this expansion was Ivan T. Sanderson, a naturalist and Fortean researcher. In the 1970s, Sanderson identified 10 specific geographic areas around the world, 5 above the equator and 5 below, where mysterious disappearances of ships and aircraft and other anomalous phenomena were frequently reported. He termed these areas vile vortices, with the most famous example being the Bermuda Triangle. Sanderson proposed that these vortices were specific nodes on a larger underlying global energy grid, where unusual electromagnetic forces were at play. Following Sanderson, Bruce Cathy, a New Zealand airline pilot, developed a highly geometric global grid theory based on his analysis of unidentified flying object sightings. Cathy claimed that UFOs appeared to follow specific flight paths that correlated with a complex geometric grid underlying the Earth's surface. He proposed that this harmonic grid represented an underlying energetic structure of the planet, with specific mathematical relationships and harmonic frequencies tying these locations together. His work, though complex and often rooted in highly unconventional mathematics, contributed to the idea of a precise, planetary-scale geometric network. One of the more detailed and widely discussed global grid theories is the planetary grid system, often associated with researchers like Dr. William Becker and Betha Hagens. Building upon earlier ideas by Sanderson and Christopher Bird, this theory superimposes a complex geometric pattern, typically derived from a combination of Platonic solids, such as the icosahedron and dodecahedron, or other polyhedra, onto the Earth's surface. Proponents of the Becker-Hagens grid argue that its nodes and lines precisely connect many of the world's most significant ancient megalithic sites, natural power spots, and even geological features. For example, specific nodes on this grid are claimed to align with sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, Easter Island, the ancient city of Teotihuacan, and the Nazca lines in Peru. The core assertion of these global grid theories, particularly in relation to ancient sites, is that ancient builders possessed an advanced knowledge of sacred geometry and a profound understanding of these underlying earth energies or geodetic principles. This knowledge, proponents argue, allowed them to deliberately position their monumental structures, such as the Egyptian pyramids, at these precise nodal points or along these specific lines. The radical implication of such theories is that seemingly disparate ancient sites, built by different cultures across vast distances and different time periods, were not the result of isolated, independent cultural development. Instead, they were part of a single, coordinated, intelligent global plan, orchestrated by an unknown civilization or intelligence that understood the Earth's fundamental energetic or geometric structure. The speculated purposes of these grid-aligned structures include acting as energy transducers, amplifying and distributing telluric currents, serving as communication nodes, functioning as navigation beacons for ancient travelers, or even forming components of a larger planetary energy system designed for unknown purposes. However, these Earth grid and ley line theories are almost universally rejected by mainstream scientific and archaeological communities due to a fundamental lack of verifiable empirical evidence. Critics argue that there is no scientifically accepted mechanism for the existence of such energy lines or global grids beyond simple geometric patterns that can be found purely by chance. The human brain is inherently adept at finding patterns, even in random data, a phenomenon known as patternicity. With enough points on a map, one can statistically always find apparent alignments or geometric configurations that are coincidental rather than intentional. Furthermore, critics point to the ambiguity in defining what constitutes an ancient site for inclusion in these alignments, often encompassing a broad range of features, some of which may not be genuinely ancient or culturally significant. Proponents are also often accused of selective data collection, focusing only on sites that fit their proposed pattern while ignoring those that do not. The absence of a scientifically plausible mechanism for how such Earth energies would work, or how ancient peoples could detect and utilize them with their known technology, remains a major hurdle for these theories. Despite the scientific skepticism, Earth grid ideas continue to fascinate and influence discussions surrounding the mysteries of the pyramids and other ancient megastructures. While speculative, they represent an attempt to bridge the explanatory gap presented by the impossible precision and large-scale alignments observed in these monuments. For some, these theories offer a tantalizing possibility of a hidden layer of ancient knowledge, or a forgotten, coordinated global plan that extends beyond our current understanding of human history and technological capability. The idea that ancient civilizations might have possessed advanced knowledge or sophisticated technologies that have since been lost to history is a recurring theme in both scholarly and popular discourse, particularly when confronted with monumental achievements like the Egyptian pyramids that seem to defy conventional explanation. This concept is not purely speculative. Historical precedents unequivocally demonstrate that significant bodies of knowledge and technological capabilities can indeed be forgotten, suppressed, or destroyed across generations and civilizations. Understanding these historical instances of knowledge loss provides a framework for considering the possibility that the builders of the pyramids had access to insights that are no longer available to us. One of the most famous and catastrophic instances of knowledge destruction is the Library of Alexandria. Established in the 3rd century before Common Era in Egypt, it was arguably the greatest repository of human knowledge in the ancient world, housing hundreds of thousands of scrolls on subjects ranging from science, mathematics, engineering, and medicine to philosophy, literature, and history. The library suffered multiple episodes of destruction and decline. Its initial significant damage occurred around 48th before Common Era, during Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria. Later, in 272 Common Era, parts of it were destroyed during the Palmyrene invasion. The final and perhaps most devastating blow came in 391 Common Era, when Christian mobs, sanctioned by Emperor Theodosius I, destroyed pagan temples and their associated libraries, including the Serapeum, an annex of the Great Library. The final collapse of the library is sometimes attributed to the Arab conquest in 642 Common Era, though by then much of its collection may have already been lost. The cumulative loss of these texts is immeasurable, representing centuries of scientific and philosophical inquiry. It is widely believed that the destruction of the Library of Alexandria set back scientific progress in the Western world by centuries as vast amounts of collected knowledge simply vanished. Another period of significant knowledge loss followed the fall of the Western Roman Empire, which occurred gradually between the 4th and 6th centuries Common Era. The collapse of central authority, widespread societal disruption, economic decline, and barbarian invasions led to a general breakdown of infrastructure, trade, and education across large parts of Europe. This period, often referred to as the Dark Ages in Europe, saw a marked decline in literacy and the widespread forgetting of classical administrative, engineering, and scientific knowledge. Roman concrete, a highly durable building material, its precise composition and methods of use largely fell into disuse until its rediscovery much later. Sophisticated Roman aqueducts and road-building techniques were no longer replicated. Many classical Greek and Roman texts, once widely available, became scarce, surviving only through the diligent efforts of monastic scribes, primarily in the Eastern Roman, Byzantine Empire and Islamic world. The disruption effectively severed the continuity of scientific and technological progress in the West for several centuries. More recently, the Spanish conquest of the Americas in the 16th century led to a catastrophic loss of indigenous knowledge. The highly developed civilizations of the Maya, Aztec, and Inca possessed sophisticated understanding in areas like astronomy, mathematics, agriculture, e.g., terracing, irrigation, medicine, and complex social organization. However, the zealous efforts of the Spanish conquistadors and missionaries to suppress indigenous religions and cultures resulted in the systematic destruction of vast amounts of native intellectual heritage. Thousands of Mayan codices, which contained detailed astronomical observations, historical records, and religious texts, were burned as works of the devil. Oral traditions were suppressed, and the knowledge held by priests, astronomers, and healers was often lost with the individuals themselves. This cultural genocide led to an irreversible loss of unique perspectives and practical knowledge. Beyond these major historical events, knowledge can also be lost through other mechanisms: the fragility of storage materials like papyrus or wooden tablets, the lack of widespread reproduction of texts, knowledge being confined to a small elite or kept secret, making it vulnerable to the disruption of specific lineages, or simply knowledge becoming seemingly irrelevant to subsequent generations, leading to neglect and eventual decay. Natural disasters such as volcanic eruptions, e.g. in Pompeii, Thera, tsunamis, and earthquakes, can also annihilate entire cities and their intellectual repositories. The idea of lost knowledge becomes particularly pertinent when examining the impossible feats of the Egyptian pyramids. The argument is that the extreme precision in their cardinal alignment, the astonishing flatness of their vast bases, the intricate stone working of multi-ton blocks, the complex internal structures, and the sheer scale and speed of their construction all seem to exceed what is conventionally attributed to Old Kingdom technology and understanding. The persistent absence of comprehensive architectural blueprints or detailed construction manuals further deepens this enigma. Proponents of lost knowledge suggest that this gap between the known capabilities of the ancient Egyptians and the undeniable evidence of the pyramids could be bridged if they possessed advanced insights or technologies that have since vanished from our historical record. For instance, this lost knowledge could pertain to highly advanced surveying and geodetic techniques that allowed them to account for the Earth's curvature in their levelling and alignment, or methods to achieve ultra-precise measurements over vast distances without modern optical instruments. It might involve forgotten processes for hardening copper tools to work granite more efficiently, or unknown, ingenious methods for lifting and manoeuvring exceptionally heavy blocks. Some ancient texts and legends, such as those from later Arab scholars, speak of the pyramids being built by pre-flood civilizations, or with assistance from divine beings, which can be interpreted as allegories for a forgotten golden age of advanced human capabilities. While caution and skepticism are crucial to avoid a God of the Gaps argument, where lost knowledge fills every unexplained ancient mystery, the historical precedents for such loss, combined with the unparalleled precision of the pyramids, keep the concept of a forgotten, advanced past a compelling subject for ongoing inquiry. The pyramids of Egypt, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, are not merely solid masses of stone. They contain intricate and precisely engineered internal structures, including chambers, passages, and shafts. The discovery and exploration of these hidden rooms and voids have significantly deepened the mystery surrounding the pyramid's construction, highlighting a level of planning, precision, and engineering sophistication that extends far beyond what would be required for simple, external construction. These internal complexities suggest a hidden layer of purpose and a mastery of internal surveying that continues to challenge modern understanding. Within the Great Pyramid of Khufu, 3 primary chambers and a network of passages form its known internal layout. From an entrance on the north face, a descending passage plunges downwards at a precise angle of about 26.3 degrees, extending into the bedrock beneath the pyramid, eventually leading to an unfinished subterranean chamber. Branching off the descending passage is the ascending passage, which rises upwards to connect to the heart of the pyramid. This passage leads to the Grand Gallery, a truly magnificent and architecturally impressive space. The Grand Gallery is a long, high and narrow passage, approximately 47 metres or 153 feet in length and over 8 metres or 26 feet tall, constructed with a unique corbelled, stepped ceiling where successive courses of masonry project inward. Its impressive engineering and precise construction demonstrate a profound understanding of structural design. From the Grand Gallery, a horizontal passage leads to the Queen's Chamber, which contains a large niche in its eastern wall, its purpose still debated. The Grand Gallery itself culminates in the King's Chamber, the pyramid's most important internal space, located almost exactly in the centre of the structure at a height of over 40 metres or 130 feet above the base. This chamber is constructed entirely of massive, precisely cut and fitted red granite blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons. It contains a large, lidless granite sarcophagus. Above the King's Chamber lies a series of 5 interconnected relieving chambers. These chambers, discovered in the 19th century, were ingeniously designed to distribute the immense weight of the masonry above, preventing the King's Chamber ceiling from collapsing under the colossal load. The uppermost chamber is capped by a gabled roof made of colossal granite beams. The existence and sophisticated design of these relieving chambers are prime examples of advanced structural engineering, demonstrating a clear understanding of a load distribution and stress management that goes far beyond simple block stacking. Adding to the internal complexity are the enigmatic star shafts, or air shafts. These are narrow, precise shafts, approximately 20 centimetres, or 8 inches, wide, extending from the north and south walls of both the King's and Queen's chambers. While sometimes referred to as air shafts, their narrowness and precise angles suggest a more symbolic or astronomical purpose. For instance, the southern shaft from the King's Chamber points towards the belt stars of Orion, and the northern shaft points towards the circumpolar star Thuban, Alpha Draconis, which was the pole star during the Old Kingdom. The shafts from the Queen's Chamber also point to specific celestial bodies, such as Sirius. These precise astronomical alignments suggest intentional celestial connections, potentially for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife or for ceremonial observations. The very existence of these complex, interconnected internal passages and chambers within a growing solid structure implies an incredibly detailed architectural planning process that occurred before the construction even began. It was not an afterthought. Maintaining specific angles, dimensions, and remarkable straightness for long passages, like the descending passage, which extends over 100 meters into the bedrock, and then ensuring they met at their intended junctions, required an extraordinarily high degree of internal surveying and accuracy. Unlike external faces, these internal structures could not be constantly verified from a distant vantage point during construction, making their precision even more remarkable. Modern discoveries of previously unknown voids and hidden rooms within the Great Pyramid further underscore its unseen complexity. In 1993, Rudolf Gantenbrink's robot, Upuat 2, exploring the southern star shaft from the Queen's Chamber, discovered a small door or blocking stone with 2 mysterious copper handles. This was the first known artificial obstruction inside these shafts, immediately sparking renewed interest and speculation. A subsequent mission in 2002, led by National Geographic, drilled a small hole through this first door, only to discover a second door behind it, along with enigmatic red markings, further confirming a continued blocked passage. the most significant recent discovery came from the Scan Pyramids project, an international multidisciplinary effort launched in 2015. Using non-invasive scanning technologies such as mammography, immunoradiography, infrared thermography, and three-dimensional reconstruction, the project aims to map the internal structure of the pyramids without causing any damage. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids team announced the discovery of a large, previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery, which they termed the Big Void. This void is approximately 30 meters, or 100 feet, long, and has a cross-section similar to that of the Grand Gallery. Its purpose remains unknown, with theories ranging from it being a relieving chamber to a hidden passage, or even a space left open for a now unknown internal construction ramp. Its very existence implies that the pyramid's internal complexity is still not fully mapped or understood. More recently, in 2023, the Scan Pyramids project announced the discovery of a hidden corridor on the north face of the Great Pyramid, located behind the main entrance. Initially detected in 2015 using infrared thermography, its existence was confirmed by mammography and an endoscopic examination through a small joint. This 9-meter or 30-foot long corridor's purpose is also unknown, but could potentially lead to a burial chamber, further relieving chambers, or be part of a concealed internal construction mechanism. The discovery of these hidden chambers, passages, and voids, particularly the Big Void and the hidden corridor, dramatically reinforces the notion that the pyramid's internal structure is far more intricate and complex than previously understood. This unseen complexity strengthens the argument for incredibly advanced planning, precise internal surveying, and sophisticated engineering genius far beyond simple external construction. The ongoing discoveries underscore that the pyramids still hold secrets, and our understanding of their precise construction, engineering, and ultimate purpose is incomplete, continually challenging our assumptions about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. The construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a testament to the ancient Egyptians' remarkable ability to work with and manipulate vast quantities of natural stone. The choice and properties of these materials, primarily limestone and granite, along with the methods employed to quarry and shape them using basic copper tools, form a critical part of understanding the monumental effort involved and the enduring questions surrounding the pyramid's creation. The bulk of the Great Pyramid, estimated at approximately 2.3 million blocks, consists of limestone. This sedimentary rock, largely composed of calcium carbonate, was primarily sourced from local quarries on the Giza Plateau itself. This proximity significantly simplified the logistical challenge of transporting millions of tons of material. The local Giza limestone is relatively soft, making it comparatively easier to quarry and shape. Ancient Egyptian quarrymen used tools such as copper chisels, wooden mallets, and simple saws to cut and dress these blocks. The process involved carving channels around the desired block, then using levers or driving wooden wedges, often soaked with water to expand and split the rock along natural fissures. Once separated, the blocks were hand-dressed to achieve relatively flat surfaces and square corners, essential for stacking them tightly in the pyramid's courses. Despite the material's softness, the sheer volume of blocks and the consistent accuracy of their shaping required immense labour and organisational skill. For the outer casing of the Great Pyramid, a finer, whiter and denser variety of limestone was used, sourced from the Tura quarries located across the Nile River. This Tura limestone was prized for its gleaming white appearance and its ability to be polished to a high sheen, giving the pyramid its original dazzling facade. While still limestone, its harder, finer grain meant that quarrying and dressing these blocks required greater effort and precision than the local Giza variety. The same basic copper tools and techniques were employed, but the work was more demanding. The ultimate achievement with Tura limestone was the astonishing precision of fitting these casing blocks. Historical accounts and remaining fragments suggest that the joints between them were less than 1 millimeter wide, a feat of masonry that appears incredibly difficult without modern precision cutting and setting equipment. The most challenging material encountered and worked by the pyramid builders was granite. This igneous rock, formed from the slow crystallization of magma beneath the Earth's surface, is significantly harder and far more durable than limestone. Composed primarily of quartz, feldspar and mica, granite has a hardness of 6 to 7 on the Mohs scale, which measures a material's resistance to scratching. In contrast, copper, the primary metal available to the ancient Egyptians during the Old Kingdom, has a Mohs hardness of only 3 to 3.5. This stark difference in hardness meant that copper tools could not effectively cut or carve granite through shearing, as they could with limestone. To quarry and shape granite, the ancient Egyptians had to rely on abrasive techniques rather than cutting. The most common method involved the use of dolerite pounders. These were heavy round balls of dolerite, a dense and extremely hard form of basalt, typically weighing between 5 and 10 kilograms, or 11 and 22 pounds. Workers would repeatedly pound and batter the granite surface with these dolerite balls, slowly pulverizing and breaking down the rock's crystalline structure. This was an incredibly laborious, tedious, and physically demanding process, gradually chipping away at the granite surface. The granite blocks for the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber, some weighing up to 80 tons, were quarried from Aswan, approximately 800 kilometers or 500 miles south of Giza. This immense distance added another layer of logistical complexity to working with such an intractable material. For more precise cuts and shaping of granite, the Egyptians utilized copper saws in conjunction with abrasive materials. These saws were not designed to cut by virtue of the copper blade's sharpness, but rather by acting as a guide for a constant supply of a harder abrasive material, such as quartz sand. Quartz, a common mineral, has a Mohs hardness of 7, making it harder than both copper and granite. As the copper saw was moved back and forth, quartz sand and water would be fed into the cut. The hard sand grains, under pressure from the saw blade, would do the actual grinding and cutting of the granite. Water served as a lubricant and helped to flush away the pulverized rock debris. This method was agonizingly slow, requiring immense patience and continuous effort. Evidence from ancient quarries, such as unfinished obelisks and rock surfaces, bears the marks of these abrasive techniques. Similarly, tubular copper drills, also used with abrasive sand and water, were employed to create circular holes or remove core samples from granite, as seen in various artifacts and quarry remains. The remarkable precision achieved in the granite work is particularly puzzling. The surfaces of the King's Chamber blocks, the interior of the sarcophagus, and the fitting of the massive granite beams in the relieving chambers are incredibly flat and accurately shaped, with extremely tight joints. Achieving this level of precision with purely abrasive techniques, which by their nature are less controlled than direct cutting, implies a mastery of material science and an application of force that pushes the limits of what is conventionally understood. The continuous tool wear and maintenance also represent a significant logistical challenge. Copper tools, even when working limestone, would dull rapidly and deform under repeated impact. For granite, their lifespan would be even shorter. This necessitated a constant cycle of resharpening, recasting, and manufacturing thousands of new tools. This operation would require a substantial bronze-working industry, involving smelting, smithing, and a continuous supply of copper ore, adding another layer of complex organization and energy expenditure to the overall construction effort. The material science of the pyramids thus highlights a persistent enigma: how the ancient Egyptians, with tools conventionally understood to be limited in their hardness and cutting ability, managed to achieve such extraordinary quality, scale, and precision in working millions of tons of both soft limestone and incredibly hard granite. The construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza represents an energy expenditure on a scale that is difficult to fully comprehend, particularly when considering the limited energy sources available to ancient societies. To quarry, transport, and lift approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, each averaging 2.5 tons, with some individual blocks weighing as much as 80 tons, to heights exceeding 140 meters or 450 feet, required an immense and sustained output of energy. When comparing this monumental requirement to the primary energy sources of the Old Kingdom, a significant mismatch appears, prompting questions about the conventional understanding of the construction process. The primary and almost exclusive source of energy available to the ancient Egyptians during the period of pyramid construction was human labor. Tens of thousands of workers, comprising skilled craftsmen, quarrymen, and conscripted laborers, mostly farmers working during the annual Nile flood season, provided the brute force necessary for the project. Human muscle power is limited by individual strength, endurance, and metabolic rate. On average, a human labourer can sustain an output of about 75 watts, or approximately 0.1 horsepower, over an extended period. To sustain this energy output, a massive logistical system for providing food and water to the workforce was essential, turning agricultural output directly into human kinetic energy. While animal labour, primarily oxen and donkeys, was present in ancient Egypt, its role in directly pulling the multi-ton pyramid blocks, especially on the ramps, is generally considered limited due to the nature of the terrain and the sheer weights involved. Animals were more likely used for lighter transport or in farming. The ancient Egyptians also understood and utilised simple machines such as levers, ramps, and possibly rollers, though their application for final lifting of heavy blocks on ramps is debated due to instability. These devices are crucial for multiplying force and making heavy tasks manageable, but it is vital to understand that they do not generate energy. Instead, they distribute the work, force multiplied by distance, over a longer distance or time, effectively making the task feasible for human power. For example, a long gentle ramp allows a heavy block to be moved with less instantaneous force, but the total energy expended is still the same, if not greater due to friction, as lifting it directly vertically. Let us consider the energy requirements for each phase of construction. Quarrying. This initial phase demanded immense energy. For limestone, hammering, chiseling, and splitting millions of blocks required continuous human effort. The work was repetitive and physically demanding. For granite, the energy expenditure was significantly higher. Pounding granite with dolerite balls is an inefficient and laborious process, consuming massive amounts of human energy to slowly abrade the hard stone. Similarly, sawing granite with copper blades and abrasive sand required constant force and continuous back and forth motion, a testament to the sheer physical endurance of the quarryman. Every single block, from its extraction to its initial shaping, represented a substantial input of human energy. Transportation, land. Moving the quarried blocks from the river landing sites or local quarries to the pyramid construction area involved overcoming the force of friction. Pulling 2.5-ton blocks on wooden sledges over prepared causeways, even if the sand was lubricated with water, still required substantial coordinated force from large teams of men. For the 80-ton granite blocks, the energy demand for land transport would have been astronomical, requiring hundreds of individuals pulling in unison. The construction and maintenance of these causeways themselves, along with the continuous provisioning of the thousands of labourers involved, added to the overall energy balance of the project. Lifting up the pyramid. This phase was by far the most energy intensive, as it involved increasing the potential energy of each block by raising it against the force of gravity. The total potential energy stored in the Great Pyramid is immense. If we consider the average height to which the blocks were lifted, approximately 1/3 of the final height of 146.6 metres, to account for the pyramid's volume distribution, and multiply that by the total mass of the stone, the calculated energy demand is staggering. When divided by the conventionally accepted 20-year construction period, this implies a continuous daily power output by the workforce that is difficult to reconcile with human physiological limits, even with thousands of workers. For example, lifting a block weighing 2.5 tons to an average height of 50 metres, 164 feet, requires work of over 1.2 million joules per block. Multiplying this by 2.3 million blocks yields an astronomical total energy requirement. Ramp systems, while making the lifting possible, are inherently inefficient in terms of energy. Pulling blocks up a ramp means applying force over a much longer distance than a direct vertical lift, and a significant portion of the applied energy is lost to friction between the sledge and the ramp surface. If levers were used for the upper levels, each small lift for millions of blocks would consume energy, again without the mechanical efficiency of the modern winches or pulleys. The challenge of lifting the 80-ton granite beams for the King's Chamber to a height of over 40 metres or 130 feet, without the aid of a pulley system or other advanced lifting mechanisms, represents an extreme energy demand for any ancient society. The mismatch argument stems from these calculations. The implied rate of block placement, roughly 1 block every 2 minutes for a 20-year construction period, suggests a sustained power output that seems to require more than just human muscle and simple machines, given the known inefficiencies and physical limits. The absence of more powerful mechanical advantages like pulleys or complex winches means that the vast majority of the work had to be done through direct human power or very inefficient ramp lever systems. This discrepancy between the calculated energy requirements and the available energy sources in ancient Egypt leads many researchers to question whether our current understanding of ancient technology is incomplete. While the ancient Egyptians were masters of organization and human resource management, the sheer energy required to build the pyramids remains a formidable puzzle. This perceived energy mismatch drives speculation about whether alternative, perhaps lost, technologies or methods that allowed for a dramatically more efficient use of energy were employed. The estimated time frame for the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza is a critical element in the enigma surrounding its creation. The conventionally accepted period for its construction is approximately 20 years, a figure largely derived from the accounts of the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt in the 5th century before Common Era. Herodotus wrote that it took 10 years to build the causeway leading to the pyramid and another 20 years for the pyramid itself. This 20-year timeline, though from a much later source than the pyramid's construction, has often been used as a baseline for calculations regarding the speed and methodology of the pyramid builders. However, when one attempts to reconcile this seemingly short duration with the immense scale and staggering precision of the monument, a significant paradox emerges, raising fundamental questions about the actual construction period and the methods employed. To understand the challenge, consider the sheer volume of material, approximately 2.3 million stone blocks. If the pyramid was indeed built in 20 years, this translates to roughly 315 blocks being quarried, transported, lifted, and precisely placed every single day. If we assume a 10-hour workday, this pace means a block would have to be moved and set into place approximately every 2 minutes. This rate is extraordinarily demanding and represents a profound logistical and physical challenge for any construction project, let alone one executed with ancient technology. Let us break down the work stages and their associated time requirements based on conventional methods. Quarrying, the initial stage of extracting 2.3 million blocks. Even for the relatively softer local limestone, cutting and dressing each block with copper tools and manual labour is a slow, arduous process. For the harder Tura limestone, and especially the granite from Aswan, the process is excruciatingly slow, relying on abrasive techniques like pounding with dolerite balls and sawing with sand and water. Estimating the time needed to extract and roughly shape just one 2.5-ton limestone block, factoring in tool wear, resharpening, and human fatigue, quickly reveals that quarrying millions of such blocks, let alone hundreds of 80-ton granite ones, would consume a substantial portion of the 20-year timeline. The continuous supply of such raw materials at a rate of 1 block every 2 minutes implies an almost industrial scale of quarrying, which is difficult to reconcile with known ancient capabilities. Transportation. Moving the blocks from quarries to the pyramid site also adds significant time. While river transport on the Nile was efficient for large quantities, the loading and unloading of multi-ton blocks from barges and the subsequent land transport to the pyramid base were time-consuming operations. Pulling a 2.5-ton block on a sledge, even over a prepared causeway and lubricated surface, is slow. Moving 315 blocks a day means thousands of trips daily, each requiring a dedicated team of labourers. The constant flow of materials without major bottlenecks or delays would be a logistical marvel in itself. Lifting and placing. This is arguably the most time-consuming and critical phase. The ramp theories, whether straight, spiral, or internal, all imply a laborious process of dragging blocks up inclines. Manoeuvring a multi-ton block precisely into position, ensuring less than 1 millimeter accuracy in its fit with adjacent blocks, is not a rapid process. It requires careful alignment, adjustments, and often the use of levers to fine-tune placement. To achieve this every 2 minutes consistently for 20 years seems almost beyond human capability. The specific challenge of lifting and precisely placing the 80-ton granite beams for the king's chamber, some 40 meters or 130 feet above the ground, would realistically take days or even weeks for each individual block, severely impacting the overall average rate. The construction of the internal passages and chambers, which required precise internal surveying not visible from the outside, also adds a layer of complexity and time that is difficult to fit into such a rapid overall schedule. The impossibly long time argument arises when engineers and experimental archaeologists attempt to replicate pyramid construction processes using only conventionally accepted ancient tools and human labour. Realistic estimates for quarrying, moving and placing stones at the observed level of precision often stretch far beyond 20 years, sometimes suggesting timelines of 60, 80, or even more than 100 years for a structure of the Great Pyramid scale. This substantial discrepancy between the historical account and practical estimates, based on known methods, highlights a significant gap in our understanding. A longer construction timeframe, however, also presents its own set of challenges for conventional Egyptology. A period significantly longer than 20 years would necessitate the work to span multiple pharaonic reigns, potentially raising questions about the continuity of leadership and vision for such a singular project. Khufu's own reign is generally estimated to have lasted around 23 to 30 years, leaving little buffer for extended construction periods. Maintaining a massive workforce of tens of thousands of individuals for many decades, providing them with food, housing and medical care, would require a sustained level of centralized administrative and economic stability that is perhaps unprecedented, while other pyramids, such as the Step Pyramid of Giza or the Bent Pyramid, show evidence of design changes during construction, or sometimes less precision, suggesting adaptive building or learning processes. The Great Pyramid stands out for its completed precision within a seemingly compact time frame. This contrast further emphasizes the unique enigma of Khufu's monument. Factors that are often not fully accounted for in conventional time, estimates include the immense time required for initial site planning, precise surveying and design, if done from scratch with limited tools, the continuous logistics of feeding, housing, and managing such a vast workforce, the impact of sickness, injury and mortality rates among labourers, seasonal variations that might halt work, e.g., extreme heat or working outside the Nile flood season for farmers, and potential political upheavals or changes in Pharaoh's reign that could disrupt the flow of work. While the Egyptian pyramids stand as an apex of ancient monumental architecture, the construction of colossal structures and the practice of aligning buildings with celestial events were not unique to ancient Egypt. Across the globe, various ancient cultures erected massive pyramid-like structures or other megalithic sites that continue to inspire awe and fuel speculation. Some researchers, moving beyond conventional archaeological interpretations, observe shared characteristics or alignments among these disparate sites, which they suggest might hint at a common, advanced influence or a deeply integrated global knowledge system, rather than solely independent cultural development. When examining pyramid-like and megalithic structures globally, it is important to first define these terms in context. Pyramid-like refers to structures that approximate the geometric shape of a pyramid, often rising from a broad base to a narrower top, which can include true pyramids with smooth faces, stepped pyramids, or even large conical mounds. Megalithic refers to constructions involving very large stones, often requiring considerable effort to move and place. While the forms and materials vary widely across continents and cultures, the mere existence of monumental architecture using vast quantities of stone is a universal ancient phenomenon. Proponents of global patterns often cite several commonalities among these sites. A striking feature is the architectural form of the pyramid itself, which appears independently in diverse cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years. Beyond Egypt, stepped pyramids are found in Mesoamerica, e.g. the Maya, Aztec and Teotihuacan civilizations, and large pyramidal burial mounds exist in China and among the ancient Nubian kingdoms of Sudan. While these structures share the general pyramidal silhouette, their construction methods, materials, precise geometry, and cultural functions often differ significantly. For example, Mesoamerican pyramids are typically stepped and usually topped with temples, whereas Egyptian pyramids are true geometric forms, often with smooth faces, designed primarily as tombs. Nubian pyramids, built much later than the Egyptian ones, are smaller and much steeper. The recurrence of this form, however, regardless of specific variations, suggests to some a fundamental shared understanding of stable architectural principles, or even a common symbolic archetype. Another frequently cited commonality is the presence of astronomical alignments. Many ancient megalithic sites across the world demonstrate precise alignments with solstices, equinoxes, specific stars, or planetary cycles. Stonehenge in England, for instance, is famously aligned with the summer solstice sunrise and winter solstice sunset. The Mayan pyramids, such as El Castillo at Chichen Itza, exhibit intricate equinox shadow plays and alignments to Venus cycles. Newgrange, a Neolithic passage tomb in Ireland, is precisely aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, allowing a beam of light to penetrate its inner chamber. This widespread evidence of sophisticated astronomical observation and its integration into monumental architecture indicates a universal human fascination with the cosmos and a capacity for advanced celestial tracking. For proponents of global patterns, the precision of these alignments, particularly in cultures that were supposedly unconnected, points towards a shared, possibly highly advanced, source of astronomical knowledge. The use of large stone construction is another common denominator. Moving and placing massive multi-ton blocks was a challenge faced by builders across the globe. Beyond the Egyptian pyramids, sites like Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo in Peru feature colossal polygonal blocks, some weighing many tons, fitted together with incredible precision without mortar. The foundation of the Roman temple complex at Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon includes some of the largest quarried stones in the world, such as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing over 1,000 tons, whose placement remains an archaeological enigma. Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a Neolithic site dating back to around 9,000 to 8,000 before Common Era, features massive carved stone pillars arranged in circles, demonstrating complex communal effort and abstract symbolism from a period far predating the Egyptian pyramids. The universal ability to handle stones of immense scale, often defying simple explanations of conventional logistics and engineering, suggests a commonality of challenge and perhaps a shared, if unknown, solution. The recurring theme of unexplained precision also links many of these sites. While the Great Pyramid's cardinal alignment and geometric perfection are unparalleled, other sites show astonishing accuracy in different aspects. The Inca's dry stone masonry, with its virtually seamless fitting of irregular polygonal blocks, is capable of withstanding earthquakes. The astronomical precision of Stonehenge or Newgrange demonstrates meticulous planning over vast periods. The consistent appearance of such high levels of precision, which often seem to defy the known technological capabilities of the cultures at the time, becomes a key argument for a common influence or advanced yet lost knowledge. Furthermore, a common thread among many of these monumental ancient structures is the lack of clear, detailed records concerning their construction. Similar to the puzzling absence of blueprints for the Egyptian pyramids, comprehensive manuals or detailed descriptions of how these other megastructures were built are often missing from the archaeological record, adding to their enduring mystery. Finally, the sheer geographical distribution of these sites across continents, often in regions that, according to conventional historical narratives, were not in direct contact during their construction periods, is a compelling factor for those who propose global patterns. From an unconventional perspective, these shared characteristics are used to argue against the idea of purely independent invention. Instead, proponents lean towards theories of diffusionism from a single, older source. This source is often posited as a highly advanced global civilization that existed in prehistory, perhaps before major cataclysmic events like the Younger Dryas impact event around 10,800 before Common Era, which some theorize reset human civilization. According to this hypothesis, remnants of this advanced civilization's knowledge were passed down or survived as fragments, influencing disparate cultures globally. This challenges the linear progression of human history, suggesting a more complex, cyclical view of technological and intellectual advancement. The common source of knowledge could be entirely human, representing a mother civilization, or, more controversially, non-human, suggesting an external influence. The idea of a global geodetic system, where ancient builders understood and utilized an underlying Earth grid, influencing the precise placement and alignment of these seemingly disparate sites, is another facet of this argument. Mainstream archaeology, however, largely adheres to the principle of independent invention, arguing that similar forms or solutions can arise independently from similar functional requirements, e.g., elevation for rituals, secure burial, or geological availability of materials. Critics of global pattern theories point to coincidence, arguing that with enough points on a map one can always find apparent alignments or geometric patterns that are statistically insignificant. They also highlight selective evidence, where proponents tend to focus only on similarities, while downplaying significant differences in construction methods, purpose, and cultural context. Furthermore, convincing mechanisms for how such advanced, complex knowledge could have diffused across continents without direct and sustained cultural contact or a common writing system are often lacking in these theories. No definitive archaeological evidence for a single global mother civilization or the precise mechanisms for such advanced knowledge transfer has been unearthed. Despite the scientific skepticism, the striking similarities in precision, scale, and astronomical orientation across disparate cultures continue to fuel the idea that some common, perhaps advanced influence or knowledge might have been at play. While the mainstream opts for independent invention or limited diffusion, the enduring enigma of these global megalithic achievements keeps the alternative hypothesis of interconnectedness a persistent and fascinating avenue of inquiry. The Great Sphinx of Giza stands as one of ancient Egypt's most enigmatic and iconic monuments, an immense sculpture carved directly from the natural bedrock of the Giza Plateau. Its colossal form, a recumbent lion's body with a human head, stretches approximately 73 meters or 240 feet long and rises about 20 meters or 66 feet high. Positioned prominently in front of the Pyramid of Khafra, the Sphinx is conventionally understood to be an integral part of Khafra's funerary complex, serving as a powerful guardian and a representation of the pharaoh himself in his divine aspect. According to mainstream Egyptology, the Great Sphinx was carved during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, a king of the 4th dynasty, who ruled approximately between 2550 and 2520 before Common Era. The primary evidence for this attribution lies in its proximity to Khafra's pyramid and its associated causeway and valley temple, suggesting it was part of a unified architectural plan. Furthermore, the facial features of the Sphinx are believed by many Egyptologists to stylistically resemble surviving statues of Khafre, supporting the notion that the Sphinx's head is a portrait of this pharaoh. A much later inscription, the Dream Stele, erected between the Sphinx's paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV, 18th dynasty, around 1400 before Common Era, also associates the Sphinx with Khafre, albeit retroactively. In this conventional view, the Sphinx's purpose was to symbolically guard the Gizan Acropolis and to embody the pharaoh's power and divinity, facing east towards the rising sun, a symbol of rebirth and eternal life. However, a highly controversial theory challenges this conventional timeline, suggesting that the Great Sphinx is far older than the 4th dynasty, potentially dating back thousands of years before Khafra's reign. This older Sphinx hypothesis gained prominence in the early 1990s, primarily championed by independent Egyptologist John Anthony West and geologist Robert Schoch of Boston University. Their core argument rests on geological evidence, specifically the patterns of erosion observed on the Sphinx's body and, crucially, on the walls of its enclosure. Schoch contends that the deep, vertical fissures and undulating, rounded profiles observed on the limestone walls of the Sphinx's enclosure are characteristic of prolonged and heavy rainfall erosion, not erosion primarily caused by wind and sand. He distinguishes this from typical wind-blown sand erosion, which tends to create horizontal striations or more abrasive angular features. Egypt's climate was significantly different in different geological periods. During the African humid period, which extended roughly from 10,500 to 5,000, before Common Era, North Africa, including Egypt, experienced substantial rainfall and a much wetter, savanna-like environment. The climate then gradually transitioned to the hyper-arid desert conditions that have largely prevailed since about 2500 before Common Era, precisely the period when Khafra supposedly built the Sphinx. The implication of Schoch's geological assessment is profound. If the observed erosion patterns are indeed the result of sustained rainfall, then the Sphinx must predate the arid conditions of the Old Kingdom, pushing its age back by several millennia, possibly as far back as 10,500 before Common Era, coinciding with the end of the last ice age and the wetter climatic period. This would mean that the Sphinx was carved not by Khafre, but by a much earlier, unknown civilization. Mainstream geologists and Egyptologists, however, largely dispute Shuk's interpretation of the erosion. Critics such as K. Lalgauri, a geologist specializing in stone deterioration, and James Harrell argue that the observed erosion patterns can be adequately explained by localized weathering processes that occurred even within arid conditions. These include occasional, but intense, flash floods, water runoff from seasonal heavy dews, or even water used during the quarrying and construction process, combined with natural weathering processes like freeze-thaw cycles acting on soluble limestone over thousands of years. They contend that the evidence does not necessitate an earlier, wetter climate. Furthermore, mainstream archaeologists point to significant stylistic and archaeological inconsistencies if the Sphinx were indeed 10,500 years old. The style of the Sphinx, particularly the human head on a lion's body, is distinctly Old Kingdom Egyptian, bearing no resemblance to any known art or architecture from the proposed earlier period, for which there is no archaeological evidence of a complex civilization capable of such monumental sculpture. The associated temples, the Sphinx Temple and the Valley Temple, situated directly in front of the Sphinx, are undeniably 4th Dynasty constructions and are physically integrated with the Sphinx enclosure. If the Sphinx predates these temples by thousands of years, its original context and purpose would be entirely disconnected, and its integration with later temples would be purely coincidental or represent a significant reuse of a far older pre-existing structure. Some researchers have also theorized that the Sphinx's head might have been recarved from an earlier, possibly purely lion's head, which could explain the disproportionate size of the relatively small head compared to the massive body, and reconcile a potentially older body with a stylistically Old Kingdom face. The Great Sphinx, regardless of its precise age, undeniably maintains a deep relationship with the Giza pyramids. In the conventional view, it is the sentinel of Khafre's complex, a divine representation of the pharaoh safeguarding his eternal rest, carefully oriented towards the rising sun to symbolize rebirth. If the older Sphinx theory were correct, it would fundamentally complicate the timeline of advanced construction in Egypt. It would push back the known existence of monumental stone carving and sophisticated engineering by thousands of years, suggesting that the Giza Plateau was already a sacred site with colossal structures long before the pharaohs of the 4th Dynasty. This would align with theories of a lost civilization capable of such architectural feats far earlier than conventionally believed, possibly linked to a global cataclysm at the end of the last ice age, as proposed by some alternative historians. The Sphinx, in this view, would become a direct link to a much older, possibly more advanced pre-dynastic past. The sheer scale, the astonishing precision, and the enigmatic construction methods of the Egyptian pyramids have, for some observers, pushed the boundaries of what is conventionally considered achievable by ancient human civilizations. This profound sense of impossibility has led a controversial minority to speculate on the possibility of non-human involvement or assistance in their construction. This perspective suggests that the intelligence, knowledge, or technology required to build such monuments might not have originated entirely from earthbound human capabilities, but rather from an extraterrestrial or other highly advanced non-terrestrial source. It is crucial to emphasize that these theories are speculative, lack mainstream scientific acceptance, and fall outside the realm of conventional archaeology. However, exploring the arguments made by their proponents helps to understand the full extent of the questions that the pyramids provoke. The core argument for non-human involvement often centers on the technological disparity. Proponents contend that the pyramids' almost perfect cardinal alignment, their incredibly flat bases, which implicitly account for Earth's curvature, the astonishingly tight fitting of millions of multi-ton blocks, the sophisticated internal structures, and the rapid implied construction rate are all feats so far beyond the known or theorized capabilities of ancient Egyptians that human ingenuity alone seems insufficient. They argue that conventional explanations, even when stretched to their limits, fail to fully account for the observed precision and scale. For these observers, such engineering marvels must have required technology or knowledge that simply could not have existed on Earth at that time, pointing towards an external source. A related point of contention is the perceived lack of evolutionary precedent for the pyramids. The Great Pyramid in particular appears to emerge almost fully formed, with immense sophistication, without a clear, gradual evolutionary development from simpler structures that would demonstrate a steady progression of learned engineering techniques. While earlier Egyptian pyramids, like the Step Pyramid of Giza or the Bent Pyramid, show stages of development, the leap to the Great Pyramid's unparalleled precision and scale within a relatively short period of pharaonic rule is seen by some as too abrupt to be explained solely by human trial and error. This sudden leap in engineering capability is interpreted by proponents of non-human involvement as unnatural, suggesting an external catalyst or direct input of advanced knowledge. The mystery of the missing plans and the inferred advanced knowledge further fuels these theories. The absence of detailed architectural blueprints or explicit written instructions for pyramid construction, combined with the apparent encoding of advanced mathematical constants like pi and phi ratios, and highly precise astronomical and geodetic knowledge, e.g., understanding of precession, Earth's curvature, is interpreted by some as evidence that the knowledge itself came from an external superior source. If the ancient Egyptians possessed such profound insights, why are there no records of their theoretical understanding or the precise methods used to apply it? For those who argue for non-human involvement, this suggests that the knowledge was either imparted by, or directly utilized by, beings from outside Earth. The unexplained energy requirements are another key argument. As previously discussed, the immense energy needed to quarry, transport and lift millions of tons of stone, especially the 80-ton granite blocks, to such heights, coupled with the implied rapid construction rate of one block every few minutes, appears to be an impossible feat for human muscle power and simple machines alone. Proponents argue that this massive energy mismatch points to the use of advanced mechanical assistance from an unknown source. Speculative ideas, such as ancient knowledge of anti-gravity, sonic levitation, or other forms of harnessed energy, are sometimes proposed, though without any scientific basis or archaeological evidence. The existence of global patterns in megalithic architecture also plays into these theories. The observation of similar monumental structures, precise astronomical alignments, and the use of massive stones across various cultures separated by vast distances and time periods, often without clear evidence of direct contact, is sometimes used to argue for a shared external influence or a single non-human intelligence disseminating knowledge. This perspective suggests a coordinated global plan that transcends the conventional understanding of isolated human cultural development. This category of highly unconventional theories often converges with the ancient astronaut theory, popularized by authors such as Erich von Däniken in the late 1960s. This specific subset of non-human involvement theories proposes that ancient deities or gods described in ancient texts and mythologies were, in fact, extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in the distant past. According to this theory, these ancient astronauts interacted with early humans, influencing their development, imparting technological knowledge, or even directly assisting in the construction of monumental structures like the pyramids. Proponents often interpret ancient artwork, religious texts, and the structures themselves as proof or evidence of these extraterrestrial interactions. For example, some interpret depictions of winged beings or figures in unusual garb as alien visitors, or they claim that certain ancient texts describe events consistent with advanced alien technology. Mainstream scientific and archaeological communities overwhelmingly reject these theories due to a fundamental lack of empirical verifiable evidence. The most significant critique is that these claims are based on speculative interpretations of existing structures and ancient texts, rather than direct, concrete proof of extraterrestrial visitation or advanced lost technology. Critics argue that attributing unexplained phenomena to supernatural or extraterrestrial causes, without first thoroughly exploring and exhausting human-centric explanations, constitutes a God of the gaps fallacy, a logical error where unexplained phenomena are attributed to a divine or supernatural agent without adequate investigation of natural causes. Furthermore, mainstream archaeology consistently argues that proponents of non-human involvement theories severely underestimate the ingenuity, organizational skills, sustained labor, and practical understanding of physics possessed by ancient humans. What appears impossible to us today might simply be a reflection of our incomplete understanding of their methods, rather than a sign of alien intervention. Claims that ancient texts or artwork depict aliens are generally dismissed as misinterpretations of symbolic, mythological, or metaphorical narratives. Additionally, these theories are often difficult to falsify, meaning they cannot be disproven through scientific testing, which places them outside the realm of scientific inquiry and firmly in the domain of pseudoscience. Despite these strong scientific counterarguments, the beyond humans idea persists as an ultimate expression of the impossibility argument surrounding the pyramids. For some, the sheer scale, precision, and enduring mystery of these structures provoke questions so profound that they push observers to consider solutions that lie outside the conventional historical and scientific framework. This enduring fascination with non-human involvement, while highly controversial, underscores the magnitude of the enigma that the pyramids continue to present to our understanding of ancient capabilities.